686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around, a nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Tuesday, the 13th of January. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Nana Akua.
You can move back. I'm arresting you for facilitating the legal entry of migrants to the UK.
Migration crackdown with the new online deterrent from the government. But will it work? A migration-focused government TikTok account has been launched to, in the words of the Home Office, battle misinformation, people smugglers and ensure a wider audience is provided with evidence-based facts.
Yes, Secure Borders UK launched on TikTok today, showcasing the British government's attempts to tackle illegal migration. But is this anything more than yet another gimmick?
Keir Starmer has said that nothing is off the table. And I would say, from America's perspective, that likewise nothing is off the table when it comes to
A new criminal offence for creating AI-generated sexualised images will come into force this week after Ofcom opened an investigation into Elon Musk's AI platform Grok.
Elsewhere, China has been accused of plotting to build a hidden underground chamber beneath its new London embassy, close to sensitive City of London communications wires. Experts warn the bunker could threaten sensitive financial data.
The BBC is allegedly trying to ensure that Donald Trump's £7.5 billion defamation lawsuit is thrown out of court. The Beeb claims that the president has failed to plausibly allege the broadcaster published the documentary with actual malice.
And a Jewish MP was banned from visiting a school in Bristol, in his own constituency, after a cancellation campaign by the country's largest teaching union. They claim he wasn't pro-Palestine enough for them. We'll get the thoughts of fellow Labour MP Joni Reid later on.
What's happening to the great British boozer? The Chancellor is being accused of gaslighting the country, claiming pub bills are at a record low, whilst landlords stare down soaring costs and wait nervously to see if they have promised relief, whichever materialises. Lots of exciting things coming up. We're hearing some more breaking news, which will be bringing you all of that.
Yeah, what we should explain is that just during that 3-second sort of title page that came up in that music, we had Sam Francis over there in the corner shout across about some breaking news. What was it, Sam?
I don't think my mic's even working.
It is working.
Oh, no. Well, we'll catch up with Sam Francis in a little bit. I think it might be a government announcement about some new infrastructure between Manchester and Birmingham, something to replace the cancelled leg of HS2, but we'll
find out more about that. I want to talk about this embassy, this super embassy. I mean, look, would you honestly have your... And China is, we have to admit, a sort of not an enemy, as it were, but we're not exactly bedfellows, are we, with the Chinese? So, the Chinese government, as it were. So, if you had that kind of relationship, would you implant them near to, like, I think, was it like a metre away from some very serious cabling that contains that transmits lots of the infrastructure, so emails and all that kind of information? Would you put your enemy, as it were, right next to you?
Here's the thing, we know China spies on Britain.
Exactly.
It's just a fact. It's established fact.
Everybody spies.
Lots of countries spy. China is one of the worst. China is an adversary of this country. I know that the government likes to say it's a strategic challenge in their diplomatic speak, but very clearly...
It's a feat.
Very, very... there you go.
Ba-boom.
Ba-dum, ching. But they have been a threat to the UK. I mean, they clearly have. The argument the government sometimes puts forward is, though, currently they have lots of different consulates. This super mega embassy that's right next to the Tower of London, I mean, right in the heart of things, an enormous site, would consolidate all of their little other ones and they'd close the other ones down. Would that mean they were easier to manage? I find it hard to buy that argument.
And also some of the plans, so the 208 rooms were sort of slightly missed out of the plans. These are the ones that are really underneath, so the low-down ones. Apparently they're going to have a shower and all this kind of thing there. But
it's nice they'll stay clean.
But it begs the question why they were sort of omitted and we are unable to get that information until now. So I'm worried. I don't see why Starmer would allow that to go through, but we'll talk more about that.
Absolutely. Do send your views, comments and thoughts on everything from rail infrastructure to Chinese embassies and, indeed, the government's new attempt to stop the boats with TikTok videos. All to come after your latest news headlines with Sam.
Tom, Nana, thank you very much. Just after midday, I will reveal at the end of the bulletin, stay with me, the details on that rail link. But first, the other stories making the news. The Home Office has launched its biggest ever crackdown on illegal working, with raids and arrests now at record levels. More than 17,000 raids on nail bars, car washes, barbers and takeaways have led to over 12,000 arrests in just 18 months. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, says there is no place for illegal working, and the migrants in the black economy now have nowhere to hide. Ministers say the surge is designed to choke off the pull factors that drive illegal migration. But earlier today, the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Matt Vickers, joined us and he said Labour are to blame for the boom in illegal working.
Anybody caught working illegally should be deported, that the wages that they've managed to get out of that work should be taken from them and used to help remove them from the country. The reality is the government's putting a good spin on numbers today, but the last figures from the National Crime Agency said that 84% of interventions were not high impact, and that actually the numbers were down 16% in their last annual report. So there's different ways to use stats. The government are using them to their best advantage, but the reality is we should be arresting a lot more people who are working illegally, because there are a lot more people coming into the country illegally.
Well, breaking news from Iran. Reports emerging in the last hour or so that 2,000 people are now known to have been killed in the protest crackdown there. That is a huge jump from earlier estimates of around 600 people. That just in the last few hours. Tehran says the dead include security forces and blames what it calls terrorists, as an internet blackout makes it impossible to verify the true death toll. It comes as in the US, their virtual embassy has issued a blunt warning to American citizens, leave now, urging people to escape by land to Turkey or Armenia if they can. Those who can't leave are being told to hunker down and keep a low profile. Meanwhile, in Washington, Donald Trump has been briefed on covert and military operations and options, including missile strikes and cyber attacks. Iran has said it is open to talks with the United States, but prepared for war as pressure mounts over what European leaders are now calling the regime's final days and weeks. Here, Sir Keir Starmer has warned X that if it can't control its AI tool Grok, the government will, threatening to strip the platform of its right to self-regulate. Media watchdog Ofcom has now launched an urgent investigation into claims that the chatbot is being used to create sexualised images of women and children. The Technology Secretary says such images are weapons of abuse, as ministers move this week to make non-consensual AI pornography a criminal offence. Lord Peter Mandelson has issued a personal apology to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for continuing a friendship with him after his conviction in 2008. After days of backlash, Mandelson admitted, quote, "I was wrong to believe him and I apologise unequivocally to those who suffered." The apology follows his dismissal as UK ambassador to Washington after emails showed he stayed in contact with Mr Epstein years after that conviction. The Liberal Democrats are promising a legal right to be seen in A&E within 12 hours, as they accuse both Labour and the Conservatives of letting patients suffer on hospital trolleys. The £1.5 billion plan would create thousands of extra beds and scrap a US drug deal that they say is driving up NHS costs. More than 50,000 people waited over 12 hours to be admitted in November alone, with doctors linking delays to thousands of excess deaths. Well, the Lib Dems' Deputy Leader Daisy Cooper says it's a result of years of failure by successive governments.
Even though it has become normalised, it is devastating for patients and their health outcomes, and it is so demoralising for our NHS staff as well. They hate providing care in corridors, so we absolutely shouldn't blame staff for this. This is a failure of successive governments to get to grips with it, and we Liberal Democrats have got a plan to fix it.
The BBC is moving to have Donald Trump's $5 billion defamation lawsuit thrown out before it reaches trial. Court filings show the broadcast will argue the Florida court has no jurisdiction and that the Panorama programme didn't defame the president or cause him any harm. The BBC admits the edit was misleading, but said Mr Trump was still re-elected after it aired, undercutting any claim of damage. If the case proceeds, a trial could take place in 2027. And this is one for Tom Harwood. Listen closely. Ministers are set to revive the cancelled Manchester to Birmingham or Birmingham to Manchester leg of HS2 as part of a major new rail plan for the north. Labour will announce a reboot of Northern Powerhouse Rail with a new high-speed link promised once east-west lines are delivered, they say. These reports emerging in the last few minutes in the Financial Times. The move comes after Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak scrapped the original route, leaving the West Coast main line under severe pressure. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you in half an hour.
Well, that's a very significant story there from Sam for the north of England. How many times have the people of Manchester been promised new rail only for it to be cancelled? Northern Powerhouse Rail has been this yo-yo, this hokey-cokey project that one government promises, then it cancels it, then it promises it again, then it cancels it again. Let's hope for the people not just of Manchester and of Liverpool and of Birmingham, but also the whole country that needs to be more connected. Let's hope this won't be yet another yo-yo project that the government announces when it's in a bit of trouble and then cancels at the first opportunity.
Well, it's a bit like the hokey-cokey migrant, wasn't it? The one that kept coming back and forth. You go out, then you come back in, out, the smugglers. We can make a song about that. But now, of course, the government trying to be really clever with this TikTok thing. Now, I lied earlier when I said it had 8,000 views.
Oh, yes?
It's 3,169, sorry. I don't know where I saw the 8. But there are 489 followers now to this. So, you know, it's just basically to try and show us how scared the migrants, show them how scared they should be about coming to this country. But
yeah. Well, this TikTok account, of course, is all coming as Labour claims immigration enforcement raids have hit their highest level in British history as the government ramps up its crackdown on illegal migrant workers.
Critics, though, claim that despite the encouraging number of crackdown raids, the illegal job economy is still thriving because of Labour's soft position on the borders.
Well, the latest brainwave, as Nana has been explaining, is the use of a new TikTok account to stop the influx of small boat crossings.
Well, joining us now is former Labour Home Affairs advisor Danny Shaw. Danny, let's talk about this. How effective do you think this video will be?
Look, it's going to be very difficult to measure the effectiveness of the video, but if you want to publicise what you're doing, and if you want to show that illegal migrant raids are going up and arrests are going up and deportations are going up, then it's all very well having articles in the Times and the Telegraph and the Guardian, or having a piece on GBNews or Sky News, but you've also got to reach the social media channels where a lot of people are getting their information from, and we know a lot of the people smugglers and a lot of the migrants are...
I think we've lost him. Oh, I think Danny's gone. Sadly, we've lost him. Hopefully we can bring him back. But you know, what you're seeing on your screens is a snapshot of the TikTok video that is currently being played by the Home Office, presumably to deter migrants from entering this country and to show off how effective we are. Now, what you were saying earlier, Tom, it's hardly the scariest thing, is it? Because it's not like ICE in America.
Well, I think the fundamental difference is that when the White House puts out their videos, which are effective and do get millions upon millions of views and all the rest of it, is that it's telling a narrative truth that people believe, because people can see what's happened to the southern border in the United States. I think it's very hard for the Home Office in Britain to tell a story that people don't believe because they can see the numbers for their own eyes.
Well, it's a true
Danny
story.
Shaw, I think,
I was going to say it's a true story, but it's not a very good one to tell.
Well, I believe that Danny Shaw is back with us now. I suppose there's always the risk of overemphasising just one part of an overarching strategy and saying, is this the golden bullet? And obviously every politician will say there's no golden bullet. But every single part of the strategy that we've seen so far, it just doesn't really seem to add up to anything more substantial.
Well, we're going to see that later this year and next year if we see some results in terms of, are the small boat crossings coming down? Is the returns deal with France ramping up? And are asylum seekers moving out of hotels? Then we will know if the whole strategy is working. But I certainly think on illegal working, I do think that the Labour government's got a good story to tell. I do think that they have focused more on that than the predecessors. They put some resource into it, they put some effort into it, and the figures show that. Over 17,400 raids in 18 months, 12,300 arrests, 1,700 of those deported. Those deportation figures need to be higher, but I think that's certainly a start. But what I was saying was, obviously, you know, this may not be the best video in the world, but if you want to reach people who are organising crossings, illegal crossings, and organising illegal migration, then you have to put videos out on the social networking channels that people are getting their information and news from. It's not enough just to have an article in the Daily Telegraph or a piece on GBNews.
No, we hear you, but is this just a slight distraction tactic? So we all look at this and we think, oh, they're doing something. When in reality, we know that this is such a small element of it, and that the larger, sort of the elephant in the room is the fact that there are so many small boat crossings, the fact that they've got the backlog, the fact that the Home Office is in disarray. surely they should be focusing on other things and actually stopping the boats, or really, really showing the public that they're serious about this. Because as a British person, I'm looking at this and I don't feel they're that serious about it.
Nana, you're right. It's a small element, but it's an important element. And it's one of a number of things that the government is doing. And I would agree with you, the results are not there yet. But I can't argue or take issue with what they're doing, cracking down on illegal working. That's really important. People are being exploited. It means other people who might get jobs in the legal economy are not getting those jobs. And it means that unscrupulous businesses are getting away with it. So that's really important. But it's just one element. It's not going to fix the problem. We know that there are a whole raft of things. Ramping up the deal with France will help. I think around 200 people have left the UK for France. 200 people have been allowed in under that reciprocal deal. There need to be asylum hubs in other countries, particularly in the Balkans, where people who can't be removed to their homeland can be taken. That will act as a deterrent. And there needs to be better joint working with France. I'm slightly concerned that I think some of that has stalled and is not as effective as it should be. But, you know, this is one element, seems to be quite successful. But my goodness me, you're absolutely right. We need to see bigger results overall.
All right, Danny Shaw, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you as a former Labour Home Affairs advisor. They should have kept Rwanda.
Well, we should say the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has said this: there is no place for illegal working in our communities. That is why we've surged enforcement activity to the highest level in British history, so illegal migrants in the black economy have nowhere to hide.
He went on to say, I will stop at nothing to restore order and control to our borders.
Well, now, friends of GB News can vote on this very question in our You Decide poll by scanning the QR code on screen now. Today, we're asking this.
Can TikTok deter the small boats?
I wonder what the results of this poll will be. Well, we'll have to show them later in the programme.
I mean, I've looked at some of the stuff on TikTok, and I'll do a monologue, and there's, like, lots of likes. Then there's some madness on there.
Oh, yeah.
With people saying, oh, look at her hair, look at her wig, who did the makeup, and all this. And I'm like, whoa, how about what I'm actually saying?
Oh, but I've seen those. Some of your monologues, Nana, get millions of views, right?
Thank you.
And then there's maybe a couple of dozen comments of the people that don't like you. There's many, many more that
But it's just so funny that when I see them, it's like, look at the wig, look at the wig, look at the makeup. They're not even thinking, she's a man, all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Anyway.
I wish people would call me a man. Anyway, to have your say on this very poll, to get back to the topic, is you can become a friend of GB News. For a limited time, friends could win 50,000. Well, one of 50,000 of these things that we've got.
Yes,
now, these are fun little bumper stickers that you can put on the back of your car that say, proud to fly our flag, as I think we all are.
I should put that on my car. I'm looking forward to that. I love these. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Right, so take a look at this.
Becoming a friend of GB News is free. It lets you have your say and be part of our shows every day on TV and radio. Plus, if you sign up by January 31st, you could win one of 50,000 limited edition GB News bumper stickers. To become a friend and for your chance to win, go to gbnews.com/bumper sticker now or scan the QR code on screen. 18 plus UK only. Full T&Cs at gbnews.com/terms of use.
All right, well, I look forward to seeing your car bumper sticker. Looks like fun. All right.
Absolutely. Now, it's 19 minutes past midday, and a new criminal offence for creating AI-generated sexualised images will come into force this week after Ofcom opened an investigation into the AI service Grok yesterday. But the Liberal Democrats are demanding an immediate ban of Twitter, formerly known as X.
Well, joining us now is lawyer and writer Luke Gitos. Luke, thank you very much for joining us. Now, how is there, because of course we've got the Online Safety Act, is there something within that that can stop Elon Musk using Grok in the way that it's being used? Because I thought we already had laws to protect us from that.
We certainly do. I mean, I think we can all agree
that the creation of indecent images of children needs to be criminalized. And of course, it has been since the 1970s. There has been refining legislation since then. And the making of any indecent image of a child is illegal, has been illegal for a long time, and is punished very severely by our courts all the time. And that includes, by the way, the making of what we call pseudo photographs. So AI images are 100% already covered when it comes to children. The question becomes more complicated when we're talking about adults. There is already legislation that was passed under the Online Safety Act, as you suggest, which deals with the sharing of an intimate image without consent. So here, a mere clarification on the law to say that images would include material generated by AI would be enough. There just isn't a legal lacuna here. There isn't a problem that needs to be fixed. What I think is extraordinary is how our political class are so keen to go from a non-problem to the mass censorship of the internet, because that's what they're now talking about, you know, going from an imagined issue to saying that Twitter needs to be banned. I mean, that's just absolutely extraordinary. But of course, this is where our political class feel most comfortable, where they have an apparent problem. Their immediate response is censorship of any kind that they can. And I think that's the underlying trajectory here, that they are pushing for more regulation of the internet. They see this as something that the public will get behind. I'm not sure they're right about that at all. But they are just very comfortable in looking to censor people online. And I think that's what's driving this. It's not a problem with the law as it exists. It's not the need to protect children and grown-ups from this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And of course, so that principal point aside, we can talk a bit more about how this won't work, because obviously there are other platforms that can generate non-consensual intimate images of an adult. Look at Photoshop, look at any number of digital platforms out there that can create similar images that the government are paying no attention to. The fact is that Twitter has a special place in the minds of Labour and Lib Dem politicians as a place where people speak freely, and that's fundamentally what's driving their impulse to limit it, to regulate it, and according to the Lib Dems, ban it entirely.
Well, this is the fascinating point, is it not? The whole bikini trend. Because when we're talking about sexualised images, it almost sort of removes us from the actuality of what's happened. Grok bans nudification, which is what politicians are talking about a lot. I mean, the reason why this trend started, this distasteful trend, is that people are trying to get around the filters and the blocks that Elon Musk put on the service. And they found a way to sort of half get what they wanted to do. But that was the users being malicious, and somehow the government wants to blame the service for that. Interestingly, they don't do the same with ChatGPT or Gemini, all of these other AI filters, AI large language models that you can actually do the same thing with if you word your prompt in a clever enough way. If you get around the blocks that all of these companies try to place in, you can very often create this sort of stuff. I mean, clearly, Luke, what you're getting at there is that the government it has a special place in its mind for Twitter.
They've got an agenda.
Because they don't like Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly. So Musk has responded in kind, hasn't he, by calling the government fascist. I mean, I don't necessarily think that kind of language helps, but I do think he's right that the impulse of the government in the UK is towards censorship. And what we've seen over the last 30 or 40 years is more regulation of the internet, more criminal offences that govern the way people communicate online. And this is part and parcel of our bigger conversation around free speech. I mean, the Online Safety Act has been used by law enforcement in this country to criminalise people for what they say. You know, hundreds of people a year arrested for what they tweet for, and you see this continuously.
Can I just ask you, Luke, very briefly? So if they sort of got rid of the ability and said to Elon, OK, you've just got to stop Grok from doing that, would that be acceptable? Just very briefly, sorry, I'm running out of time, but I wanted to know what you thought.
Well, other large language models have ethical frameworks. And, you know, if you type into ChatGPT, produce me an indecent image of someone, it's going to tell you no. So maybe there is an argument that Grok should implement something similar. But you're right, that there are ways around all of these safeguards.
Well, that's the point. Grok would block you if you said create a naked picture of this person or an indecent thing, but they say create swimwear. Well, swimwear doesn't have that same block because there are many legitimate uses. I mean, I might want to see what I look like in a new pair of swimming trunks, so Grok will do that. But Luke, thanks so much for talking through this complicated legal question. Lawyer and writer Luke Gittos there.
Right, well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, China has been accused of plotting to build a hidden underground chamber beneath its new London embassy. Alicia Kearns will be raising an urgent question on the Chinese embassy proposal shortly in the House of Commons.
All of that and much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Look, this is winter. It's flu. Flu comes in winter. Sure as eggs is eggs. There's nothing particularly special about the virus. It has mutated, but that change has made it able to spread through the community by defeating our existing immunity. But the virus itself remains the same in terms of its clinical impact. So while it's a problem at a community and population level, lots of cases, for people who catch this, it's no worse than normal seasonal flu. It's not like we've got a supercharged flu that makes people much iller. We've got a virus that's spreading better and it's come earlier. So we're seeing it rising up the sort of infectious disease rates faster for this time of year. And there are a number of reasons for that, partly because it is a different virus, it's mutated. We haven't seen this particular strain spread for a couple of years. So population immunity levels are quite low. That's why it's spreading more.
So what you said there, very calm, very rational, quite reassuring, to be honest with you, seems very logical, understandable. Earlier today, the BBC decided to do a report that looked a lot like this. Let's play the clip.
The throwback, isn't it? We were used to wearing these a few years ago. Now this is the precaution being taken. Also, people are being told to make sure their hands are clean and that they're not bringing germs into the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we haven't got time to play it all, but she goes on to, like, you know, use the hand sanitizer. Again, I'm just wondering if it's a little bit fear-mongery.
Well, look, we must take flu seriously because it's a fact that if we tot up the excess mortality in the wintertime, just in the UK, and we attribute a lot of this excess mortality to flu, in an average year, maybe 5,000-6,000 people will lose their lives to flu. And in a bad year, it might be as high as 20,000. So we don't take this lightly. We're not complacent about flu.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain, 29 minutes after midday. Now, Sir Keir Starmer is expected to approve plans for a Chinese mega embassy in central London later this month, despite major security concerns.
Well, the decision has caused strong backlash from local residents, as well as 9 Labour MPs who've written to the Prime Minister urging him to rethink.
Well, joining us now is the Executive Director of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, Luke de Pulford. Luke, I think a lot of people will be looking at this and just asking why. Why is it in our interests as a country to have China have this mega embassy in the heart of London, close to very important cabling?
Well, I think the government's hand has been forced. There'll be many within government who are asking the same question. The difficulty is that China is dangling an economic carrot before the Prime Minister and saying, if you want to come to Beijing at the end of this month, we have to have the green light for the mega embassy. Not only that, for years now, our main diplomatic mission in Beijing, our embassy in Beijing, has had the water and electricity periodically turned off to it, and the Chinese are denying us the ability to redevelop it. It is literally a crumbling building. So the government is forced, really, it has a choice where it's having to look at the possibility of not having a functional diplomatic base at all in China versus accepting this monstrous mega embassy, and it feels that it's the lesser of two evils. Sadly, that's where we are. Even then, we should not capitulate, and we should be standing up for national security, not making these kinds of concessions.
What do you make of the argument that, look, everyone knows China spies on Britain? Like, let's take that as read. That happens as things stand. And as things stand in London, there are lots of consulates sort of dotted around the place where the Chinese the Chinese state, the CCP, has a big spread of sort of coverage across London. Consolidating it in one easy-to-manage, kind of central and massive centre, perhaps that's easier for the government, so say some.
Yeah, some people do say that. In fact, the people saying that are actually spokespeople for Number 10 and not our intelligence and security services, who actually understand the way that Chinese interference operates, which is not all from one singular base. The idea that rounding up hundreds of extra Chinese state employees in one space makes them easier to spy upon ourselves is frankly ludicrous for anybody who understands how this works. China, according to the most senior committee in Parliament, has penetrated every single sector of the United Kingdom economy, partly through the United Front. It has not done that from one singular base, and any suggestion that they have is really for the birds. What I would also say is that China is intending to reshape our way of life. Yes, we attempt to spy on China, but their capacity far exceeds ours. We are not in China trying to reshape the way that they do things. That is what the Chinese Communist Party is trying to do in the United Kingdom. We're making it easier for them. This plan includes 232 extra move-on flats within the complex. 232 in addition to huge buildings that are already there. We're talking hundreds more Chinese state employees, and all evidence suggests that where you have more Chinese state employees, you have more interference and you have more intimidation. That is what we are welcoming. We are about to unleash an unprecedented era of interference and intimidation upon the UK if we accept this mega embassy.
All right, Luke de Bulford, thank you very much. He is the Executive Director of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Plenty more still to come.
Yes, Alicia Kearns is set to raise an urgent question on the Chinese embassy proposal. Stay with us.
Yes, that all to happen in the House of Commons, but let's first get an update on your latest news headlines.
Very good afternoon to you at 12:33. The top story this hour, the Home Office has launched its biggest ever crackdown on illegal working. More than 17,000 raids and 12,000 arrests in just 18 months. The Home Secretary says there is now nowhere for migrants to hide, but the Tories accuse Labour of letting illegal immigration boom.
Anybody caught working illegally should be deported, that the wages that they've managed to get out of that work should be taken from them and used to help remove them from the country.
More than 2,000 protesters are now reported dead in Iran as Tehran says it's prepared for war. President Donald Trump has been briefed on missile strikes, cyber attacks and covert action against Iran. Sir Keir Starmer has warned X to get control of its AI chatbot Grok or face government intervention. Ofcom's investigating claims it's being used to create sexualised images of women and children as ministers move to criminalise AI-generated abuse. Lord Peter Mandelson has now apologised to Jeffrey Epstein's victims for staying friends with him after his conviction. He admits, "I was wrong to believe him," after losing his job as UK ambassador to Washington. The Liberal Democrats have promised a legal right to be seen in A&E within 12 hours. They say more than 50,000 people waited that long in November alone, calling it a result of years of government failure.
It is devastating for patients and their health outcomes, and it is so demoralising for our NHS staff as well. They hate providing care in corridors.
And the BBC is trying to have Donald Trump's $5 billion lawsuit thrown out before trial. It says a Florida court has no jurisdiction and that Trump was re-elected anyway. Those are the latest headlines. I'll have the full lunchtime news at 1.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. It's a bit wet out there at the moment, but also markedly milder than it was this time last week. However, we do have colder air to the northwest of the UK. That's going to make its way southeastwards as we go through the next 12 hours or so. Before that, there are two fronts lying across the country, bringing a fair amount of cloud and rain, particularly across much of England and Wales. A lot of that rain is clearing away towards the east-southeast, but it's going to take quite a while to clear away from some far southeastern parts. Elsewhere, brighter weather pushing its way in, but also a fair few showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland in particular. Like I said, colder air feeding its way in, so turning chillier towards the northwest despite the brighter skies, but staying milder towards the south and southeast. Here, as we go through into the evening, quite cloudy, some damp weather across parts of East Anglia and the far southeast, mostly dry but cloudy in the southwest. Elsewhere, across the rest of England and Wales, and also Northern Ireland and Scotland, some decent clear skies as we go through the evening and the start of the night, but also a fair few showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland. And with the cold air across us, some of those showers will be falling as sleet or snow over modest high ground. Most places are going to have a dry night with lots of clear skies, the exception being in the far south-southeast, where it's going to stay quite cloudy, but damp at times, and also more showers piling in across parts of Scotland. But with those clear skies in other areas, well, temperatures are going to drop, widely getting close to, if not below, freezing, so we can expect quite a widespread frost. There will also be some icy patches and some freezing fog patches as well first thing tomorrow morning. Those freezing fog patches could take a little while to clear as we go through the day, but actually otherwise a lot of bright weather for most places, except in the far south-southeast, staying quite cloudy, damp here, and across some western parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland we're going to see cloud and rain feeding in. Despite the bright skies, it is going to be a chilly day for most.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A737 is shut both ways between Roadhead Roundabout and Clarks Bridge Roundabout after a road traffic incident. In Northamptonshire, the M1 southbound exit slip at junction 18 is closed following a vehicle fire. In Thurrock, the A13 eastbound between the M25 and the A1012 has one lane closed for a broken down vehicle. Also, the A27 eastbound between the A270 and the A293 is blocked after another vehicle fire. And on the trains, Great Western Railway is reporting disruption on various routes. And London Overground has disruption between West Croydon, Crystal Palace and Sydenham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 38 minutes after midday. Now, a Jewish MP was banned from visiting a school in Bristol after a successful campaign by pro-Palestine protesters. Damien Egan, the Labour MP for Bristol North East, was due to visit Bristol Brunel Academy, but the visit was cancelled after an intervention by the Palestine Solidarity campaign.
And it's worth noting that the teaching union also got involved with this campaign, preventing a sitting local MP from visiting a local school. Well, the Community Secretary, Steve Reid, called the incident an outrage. And joining us now is the chair of the all-party parliamentary group against anti-Semitism, Joanne Reid MP. Thank you so much for being with us here this afternoon. It's a shocking incident, not just that there was a sort of vocal group of protesters, but frankly that the largest education union in the country was behind this as well. I mean, you must be fairly shocked.
Yeah, it is shocking, and let's be clear about what this was and what it wasn't. It wasn't a demonstration against Netanyahu outside of the Israeli embassy. It was a concerted effort to stop a democratically elected member of our parliament attending a school in his constituency to visit his constituents because he is Jewish and his husband is Israeli. It is shocking. It's a sad indictment of where we are as a society at the moment, but it just adds to the further attempts that we've seen quite a lot of recently, particularly since October the 7th, of trying to intimidate Jews in order to exclude them from public life and also to stop them expressing their Jewishness openly. It's not anti-Israeli, it's anti-Semitic, and it's completely unacceptable.
Now, I know their argument is that they are not. It was not because he was Jewish. They're saying it's his stance on Palestine. But either way, what business have they in bringing any political, political nuances into a situation where, of course, this man is coming to speak? It just seems shocking.
Damien Egan is a good friend of mine, and I know his positions on what's going on in the Middle East, but frankly, it's irrelevant. Jews should not be held responsible for the actions of Netanyahu and the Israeli government in the same way that Palestinians shouldn't be held accountable for the actions of Hamas. So it is, as you say, shocking. This happened before Christmas. I'm pleased to say now that Damien will be visiting the school in the next couple of weeks. But we need to look at why this happened in the first place, what can be done about it. I want to know what the leadership of the school, what they did to try and support Jewish members of staff and Jews from visiting their school. And we need to now start taking, we've had Bondi Beach, we've had Manchester, the highest rates of anti-Jewish hatred recorded ever in the history of the UK recently. We now need to start taking that seriously, and it's not just about giving Jewish communities physical protection. It's about protecting their way of life and allowing them in a truly British way to be able to display their Jewishness without fear.
Well, this is the extraordinary thing. It's almost two elements of this. As you rightly point out, there could be Jewish members of staff, there could be Jewish children at that school, there could be children with varying views, of course, who come from different backgrounds. And who should a group of activists be to almost steer the ideological direction of the educational curriculum in that school, or of what children are allowed to hear? Or it sounds very, very sinister.
What's worrying is they're teachers. They're teachers, and these people are teaching our children.
I don't think that all teachers were involved in in developing this campaign of intimidation. It's a small number of extremists, and the teaching unions should take it very seriously. They should hold these members to account, and they should be tackling anti-Jew hatred in the same way that they tackle any other kind of hatred.
But of course, this seemed to have the endorsement of the National Education Union.
Yeah. It's not unique to the education unions or indeed teachers. I'm afraid to say that anti-Semitism and the scourge of it is rife in all of our public institutions at the moment, and we need to there's been plenty of reports and inquiries into this. We now need to take a step back and think about how we tackle this at a cultural level, societal level and strategic level, because it's not just the education unions. We had the GMC case just a few months ago as well. It's everywhere.
But the irony here is that the problem that we have with Hamas in particular was that they were educating the children to dislike Jewish people. And we can't find ourselves in a situation where any sort of dislike of any sort of religion and philosophy permeates through an educational setting. What is the parliamentary group going to do about it? What's the next move? How do you tackle this?
My focus is to ensure that there's an understanding of anti-Semitism, which, of course, is thousands of years old and presents itself in quite complicated ways, which might not on the surface appear anti-Semitic, but actually is. We at the moment, anti-Jew hatred and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories kind of spread with impunity online. So I'd like to see Ofcom do more to address that. We have to have individuals take responsibility for their own actions, but institutions, whether that's regulators, schools, truly understand anti-Semitism and tackle it where it raises its ugly head. And that's going to have to take a kind of strategic approach. I'd like to see an extremism strategy from the government and having a look at how Prevent operates as well, because there is anti-Semitism and it's rife, but hatred is on the up in all forms. So we need to look at extremism as a policy in the mix and strategically.
And before we let you go, obviously extremism in the round, but there is a specific form of extremism that has taken the lives of Jews in Manchester, in Australia, that I think it's fair to say has been behind a large proportion of the rise in anti-Semitism, and that's specifically Islamic extremism. Does the government need to do more on this?
I would like to see the government come forward with an extremism strategy, which would look at how Prevent is operating, how it's identifying people, how people are being groomed and made into extremists online. It's a big.
Is that in all forms of extremism, or is that specifically Islamic extremism?
Well, actually, we don't know in all circumstances. There's been terrorist attacks which come from general extremism and hatred, whether it's misogyny, and there are different forms of extremism. Of course, Islamic extremism is one example of that, and of course it exists. So we need to look at what interventions work for different forms of extremism.
Okay. Joni Reid, MP, thank you very much. I appreciate your thoughts. She's the chair of the party parliamentary group against anti-Semitism.
Well, a spokesman for Bristol Brunel Academy, the school involved, said this.
On the evening before Mr Egan's scheduled visit, we were made aware of plans for a public protest outside the school. We opted to postpone Mr Egan's visit to ensure everyone would continue to feel safe when entering and exiting the school and to prevent any disruption to our students' learning.
We have remained in contact with Mr Egan, and an alternative date for his visit was arranged some time ago. We have also been in contact with the police and followed their advice.
All right, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News.
Now, if you're in search of some sunshine, as it's still a bit cold in this country, here's the weather in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. If you're heading away for some winter sun, there's plenty of sunny weather across the Mediterranean, into Spain and Portugal, some wet weather through the rest of this week, but plenty of sunshine for parts of the Mediterranean, particularly into Greece. A risk of showers for Italy, parts of Croatia as well through this week, but it's Spain and Portugal that's seeing the particularly wet weather through the rest of this week. Slightly fresher feel for the Canary Islands on Wednesday, but it does look like temperatures come up more closer to those 19-20 degrees by the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. We're going straight to the House of Commons, where an urgent questioning is being brought of the Home Office. Let's listen in.
A final decision will now be made on or before the 20th of January 2026. The variation to the timetable is routine when additional time is needed for determination. Members can be assured, and I'm afraid, Mr Speaker, I will be required to state the following ad nauseam, that ministers will take all material planning considerations into account when the final decision is made, and ministers will inform the House of the decision accordingly.
In fairness, as you brought me into it by saying, as I will know about planning, absolutely. But I didn't choose for you to be the minister that answered this. I would have thought, actually, it would have been the Home Office and the Security Minister. So please, Alicia Kent.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It is very disappointing to get a technocratic history lesson rather than answer to the meaningful question.
Exactly.
208 secret rooms and a hidden chamber just 1 metre from cables serving the City of London and the British people. That is what the unredacted plans tell us that the Chinese Communist Party has planned for its new embassy if the government gives them the go-ahead. Indeed, we now know they plan to demolish the wall between the cables and their embassy. Cables on which our economy is dependent. Cables carrying millions of British people's emails and financial data. An access that would give the Chinese Communist Party a launchpad for economic warfare against our nation. The Home Office and the Foreign Office say security concerns have been addressed. So I put to the Minister, had any minister seen these unredacted plans before the Telegraph uncovered them? And if not, why not? Was Parliament misled when we were told that all documents were publicly available? Is it true that in December a briefing was given to Five Eyes partners on these risks? And does the Minister really have no concerns at all over plans to install heavy ventilation equipment parallel to these cables? What is that for? If the government is as shocked as we are today on this, have the ministers already called in the Chinese ambassador to explain these secret rooms? And if not, why not? The embassy would create a daily headache for our security services. What confidence can we have that the CCP's technological capabilities can be contained for a decade, let alone 10? I have consistently asked the government to require the Chinese to pay for any rerouting of cables if they're going to give this the go-ahead. So will the government commit to that today? The Prime Minister, we understand, is planning to visit Beijing this month. Is it true the embassy will be approved this week? That the Prime Minister plans to reward the Communist Party, holding a British national hostage, torturing him in confinement, who put spies at the heart of our democracy, is bad enough. To turn up with a gift in hand begging for handouts is beggar's belief, because Labour promised a new relationship with China, yet UK export goods are down 23%. Surrendering our security for Chinese trade was always a bad policy, but surrendering our security while exports plummet is frankly insanity. The government can claim today that they had no idea about these secret rooms, and we will take them at that word. But they cannot now say they have no power to protect us. Protect our economy, protect the British people, deny the Chinese Communist Party their embassy.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Shadow Minister for her questions. I'm obviously not going to comment on speculation in the press. When it comes to the specific case that's before ministers, at the application stage, it was a matter for parties what information was put forward for consideration, and it was a matter for Tower Hamlets what information was put on the planning register and the inquiry website. We've not misled the House. All inquiry documents are publicly available on that website. If new, potentially relevant information is drawn to the department's attention, it will be assessed. This includes consideration of its relevance and whether it's necessary to obtain that information or refer back to parties, and that is a routine process. The Secretary of State transparently sought further information on the redacted drawings via a reference back letter to parties issued on the 6th of August. I again say, Mr. Speaker, no decision has been made on the case. I cannot comment on individual aspects of the case. It would be entirely inappropriate for me to comment on any matter of national security or on behalf of the security services. All inquiry documents, including the redacted drawings put forward by the applicant at application stage, are publicly available on the Tower Hamlets website. When the final decision is published, the decision letter will contain a list of post-inquiry representations, including those received as part of the reference back exercise. These will be publicly available on request.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, multiple government agencies and government departments have raised concerns about this mega embassy. Our international partners have raised concerns about it. Every security briefing I had identifies China as a hostile state to the UK. I am in no doubt that this mega embassy should not be allowed to go ahead. Internationally, China is terrorising the people of Hong Kong. It is terrorising the democratic people in Taiwan, and it is terrorising some people already in the UK. I look to my local University of Sheffield Hallam, and I also look to what it's doing to parliamentarians right here. I want my government to stand up to bullies, not reward them. We need to be seeing rules, limits put in place around China to stop this behaviour, not rewarding them with the embassy that they so dearly want.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her questions. I note and appreciate her concerns. We need a consistent position on China, Mr. Speaker, which cannot be boiled down to one word. We recognise that China poses a series of threats to UK national security, and we challenge these robustly. China also presents opportunities to the UK as the world's second largest economy and the UK's third largest trading partner. We will therefore continue to develop a consistent and pragmatic approach to economic engagement without compromising our national security. On the matter of Hong Kong in particular, we will not tolerate any attempts by foreign governments to coerce, intimidate, harass or harm their critics overseas, especially in the UK. But on the matter before us, Mr. Speaker...
Well, we are listening to the Planning Minister, Matthew Pennycook, answer an urgent question in the House of Commons on plans for a new Chinese mega embassy in the heart of London, right by the Tower of London and just a metre away from some of the most sensitive telecommunications lines this country has to offer.
Well, joining us now is GBNews' chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's also been at the Lib Dem conference this morning. So, Catherine, can you sort of comment on what we've just heard?
Yes, so the government are saying that no decision has been made. Well, if that really is the case, they're leaving it a bit late, aren't they? Because they're saying that a final decision will be made by the 20th of January, which I think is Tuesday. A lot of pressure on Steve Reed, the Housing Secretary. But look, there have long been very serious concerns about this mega Chinese embassy. And I think the revelations today in the Telegraph are nothing short of extraordinary. As we heard just now from the Shadow National Security Minister, Alicia Cairns, these unredacted plans that the Telegraph have managed to get hold of show secret rooms in basements that are walls that are going to be demolished and rebuilt literally within a metre of incredibly sensitive and important cables right in the heart of the City of London. Now here I was talking to Sir Ed Davey, he was giving a press conference about the NHS a little bit earlier, and I asked him if he thought that the government were being naive in their attitude to China. Let's have a look at what he had to say.
Fear that it is, and it should not go ahead. If you look at China's track record of espionage, whether it's in Parliament, on our industries and our country more broadly, it's a dreadful record, and they keep throwing money at it to take our secrets and to potentially undermine our democracy. We need to have a good relationship, as good as possible, with China, but I'm afraid I don't think this new embassy, this super embassy, is the right way forward.
So Sir Ed Davey saying that this embassy should not go ahead. The Conservatives saying that we should stand up to bullies. Bullies in this instance being China, also saying that actually trade with China is down. But look, this is all very, very murky because the Conservatives are potentially saying that Labour has misled the House. They're having none of it. They're saying, you know, all the information was on the Tower Hamlets website that the inquiry used. But of course, because this is a very sensitive building, there are lots of things which have not been made public. And I think there are still so many unanswered questions in terms of what the government knows, what assurance it's been given, and the threat that China clearly does pose to us.
All right, Catherine Foster, thank you very much. Really good to talk to her. Well, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? 208 underground rooms, including a hidden chamber equipped with hot air extraction systems 1 metre away from Britain's most sensitive communication cables. That's the link system.
Absolutely. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain. It's just gone 1 o'clock on Tuesday, the 13th of January. My name's Tom Harwood.
And I'm Nana Akua.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. This is Good Afternoon Britain. Let's have a look at what's coming up on the programme.
You can move back. I'm arresting you for facilitating the legal entry of migrants to the UK.
Migration crackdown. Will this new online deterrent from the government work? A migration-focused government TikTok account has been launched in the words of the Home Office, battle misinformation. People smugglers and ensure a wider audience is provided with evidence-based facts.
Yes, Secure Borders UK launched on TikTok today, showcasing the British government's attempts to tackle illegal migration. But is this anything more than yet another shiny gimmick?
Keir Starmer has said that nothing is off the table. And I would say, from America's perspective, that likewise nothing is off the table when it comes to free speech.
A new criminal offence for creating AI-generated sexualised images will come into force this week after Ofcom opened an investigation into Elon Musk's AI platform Grok.
And as we've been hearing, China has been accused of plotting to build a hidden underground chamber beneath its new London embassy, close to sensitive City of London communications wires. Experts warn the bunker could threaten sensitive financial data.
And the BBC is allegedly trying to ensure that Donald Trump's £7.5 billion defamation lawsuit is thrown out of court. The Beeb claims that the president has failed to plausibly allege the broadcaster published the documentary with actual malice.
And a Jewish MP was banned from visiting a school in Bristol in his own constituency after a cancellation campaign by the country's largest teaching union. They claim he wasn't pro-Palestine enough for them.
And what's happening to the great British boozer? The Chancellor has been accused of gaslighting the country, claiming pub bills are at a record low, while landlords stare down soaring costs and wait nervously to see if promised relief ever materialises.
More than 1,000 Labour MPs have been banned from their locals by landlords in protest against the tax hikes. We're here at the Rock Inn in Bramley, where Rachel Reeves, the local MP, has been banned. We'll be speaking to the landlady as to why.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. We were just hearing that urgent question in the House of Commons, where Alicia Kearns, Shadow Security Minister, raised the question, I was rather expecting the Security Minister to answer the question. I was rather expecting someone from the Home Office, someone who deals with security matters. Who did the government put up there? They put up the Planning Minister, Matthew Pennycook. Now, personably, nice guy. He doesn't have a brief involved in security, in defence, in home affairs. He's the guy that deals with planning policy, houses, that sort of thing. What is the question is on national security, and the government try and obfuscate, pretending it's a technical planning matter. It's not. It's a national security matter.
Interestingly enough, Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, pointed that out as well. He was expecting the same thing. Look, I'm not sure whether the Labour Party have a handle on exactly what they're doing, or if they do, I'm very confused as to why they would enable this particular behaviour. I suspect they've obviously got their hands tied by China in some way, shape or form, because that's the only way I can justify why you would allow somebody to build what is actually a super embassy, hide the planning. Perhaps that's why he's there to explain why the 208 rooms were hidden from the plan so people couldn't see what they were meant for. I don't know. But why would you do that? And I think it's a real problem here. I think it's national security is at risk on this.
Well, much more on that, and of course all the other stories we're covering today. If you want to get involved, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But let's get an update on those latest news headlines with Sam.
Very good afternoon to you. The top story this lunchtime. The Home Office has launched its biggest ever crackdown on illegal working, with raids and arrests now at record levels. More than 17,000 raids on nail bars, car washes, barbers and takeaways have led to over 12,000 arrests in just 18 months. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says there is no place for illegal working and that migrants in the so-called black economy have now nowhere to hide. Ministers say the surge is designed to choke off the pull factors that drive illegal immigration. But the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Matt Vickers, told us earlier today he thinks Labour are to blame for the boom in illegal working.
Anybody caught working illegally should be deported, that the wages that they've managed to get out of that work should be taken from them and used to help remove them from the country. The reality is the government's putting a good spin on numbers today, but the last figures from the National Crime Agency said that 84% of interventions were not high impact, and that actually the numbers were down 16% in their last annual report. So there's different ways to use stats. The government are using them to their best advantage, but the reality is we should be arresting a lot more people who are working illegally, because there are a lot more people coming into the country illegally.
Next to the latest breaking developments in Iran, where thousands are feared dead this lunchtime after a brutal crackdown on anti-government protests. Their families abroad say they are now hearing their first reports of killing and destruction from loved ones inside the country. Despite state TV claiming calm, fresh footage shows protests continuing across multiple cities, with Iranian officials telling the Reuters news agency in the last few hours that the death toll could be now as high as 2,000. We're also hearing a protester, Irfan Soltani, is now reportedly facing execution tomorrow, with rights groups saying they have never seen a case move so fast. Meanwhile, in Washington, President Donald Trump has announced a 25% trade tariff on any countries doing business with Iran, as his security team prepares to discuss military and covert operations. That comes as an internet blackout is still choking off reporting from inside Iran, leaving much of the crisis still hidden from the outside world. Here, Sir Keir Starmer has warned X that if it can't control its AI tool Grok, well, the government will, threatening to strip the platform of its right to self-regulate. The media watchdog Ofcom has now launched an urgent investigation into claims the chatbot is being used to create sexualised images of women and children. The Technology Secretary says such images are weapons of abuse, as ministers move this week to make non-consensual AI pornography a criminal offence. Lord Peter Mandelson has now issued a personal apology to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for continuing his friendship with the financier after his conviction in 2008. After weeks of backlash, Mandelson admitted, "I was wrong to believe him," and issued that unequivocal apology to the women and girls who suffered. The apology follows his dismissal as UK ambassador to Washington after emails showed he stayed in contact for years with Mr. Epstein. The Liberal Democrats have promised a legal right to be seen in A&E within just 12 hours, as they accuse both Labour and the Conservatives of letting patients suffer on hospital trolleys. The £1.5 billion plan would create thousands of extra beds and scrap a US drug deal that they say is driving up NHS costs. Well, the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Daisy Cooper, says it's all a result of years of government failure.
Even though it has become normalised, it is devastating for patients and their health outcomes, and it is so demoralising for our NHS staff as well. They hate providing care in corridors, so we absolutely shouldn't blame staff for this. This is a failure of successive governments to get to grips with it, and we Liberal Democrats have got a plan to fix it.
And the BBC is moving to have Donald Trump's $5 billion defamation lawsuit thrown out before it reaches trial. Court filings show that the broadcaster will argue the Florida court has no jurisdiction and that the Panorama programme didn't defame the president or cause him any harm. The BBC admits the edit was misleading, but they say Mr Trump was still re-elected after it aired, therefore they say undercutting any claim of damage. If the case proceeds, a trial could take place in 2027. Those are the lunchtime headlines. I'll hand you straight back now to Tom and Nana.
Good afternoon, Britain. 10 minutes past 1 is the time. Now, the government claims immigration enforcement raids have hit their highest level in British history as the government ramps up its crackdown of illegal migrant workers.
Critics claim that despite the encouraging number of crackdown raids, the illegal job economy is still thriving because of Labour's soft position on the borders.
Yeah, it's all very well having more raids, but if you've got more illegal migrants, then you're going to have more raids to deal with those more illegal migrants. But there is a new brainwave from the government, and it's to use a TikTok account to try to stop the influx of small boat crossings.
Well, joining us now is former Independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, John Vine. John, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. All right, John, so you presumably you've seen the TikTok video. What's your verdict, and do you believe that this will have any impact at all?
Well, of itself, it's not going to have a tremendous impact. As part and parcel of an overall package of measures, clearly what's important is that the government tries to get a message across to the people who are giving organised crime, you know, lots of money in order to get them over the channel to the UK. And, you know, that may make them think twice about doing that if they can see that actually there is enforcement action taking place. But it's no substitute for actual law enforcement action and cooperation with the French authorities.
This, of course, is a perennial issue for government after government after government. And I remember constant discussions about I suppose let's call it sort of glossy surface level information. That a politician will say something and sound tough and come out with a new slogan. But at the end of the day, it's what happens on the ground that actually matters. I mean, is this government falling into a same trap as so many governments before it?
Well, I think any government faced with this problem, and remember, we're not unique. I mean, lots of governments in Western countries are facing the same sort of problem as we are in relation to this issue. They struggle to get ahead of the game, and I think this is an attempt to try and get ahead of the game and inform the people, the customers basically, of organised crime groups of some of the consequences of government action to deal with it. Now, as I've said, it won't deal with the problem of itself. I mean, I would ask the question, what's happening with all the other announcements that have occurred and you've reported on in recent months? So, for example, the one-in, one-out scheme, which was an innovative idea, The last time I looked, is less than 200 people have been subject to that scheme. So whilst it is penny numbers, that's not itself going to be a deterrent. And where are we with the French police wading into shallow waters to actually intercept the taxi boats that are bringing people over the channel as well? Those announcements were made in, with tremendous publicity, and it's all gone quiet. Very often, we seem to have an overload of initiatives, but nobody actually follows up on whether those have worked or whether perhaps they're, floundering a bit.
And I suspect the reason why we don't hear about them is because of the latter, they're floundering. Otherwise, if it was working, they'd be showing it off as they are with this video, where they feel that this is a good achievement, even though very few people, if you look at the numbers of raids that they've done, have actually been sent back. Look, John, do you think, really and truly, that the government really need to be focusing their energies elsewhere? This is such a tiny part of it that perhaps really and truly they need to be looking at actually stopping the boats properly, doing something much more practical than just showing images of moderate success.
Yeah, success will be achieved when there's an actual deterrent, for people coming across illegally. Now, the government might argue this is part of the deterrent, but I think it is a small part of it. And I think it's important for the government to try and show the public in the UK that they're doing things. Perhaps, it's part of a media strategy to try and placate people's concerns about illegal migration, because the problem with it is, even though the numbers are, by international comparisons, relatively small, they are it's a totemic issue these days, which talks about the government's inability to protect the country's borders. And every government, of whatever colour, really has to have that, right at the top of its agenda.
I think what you said there, John, I think that applies to us, really, and that video was more for us to placate us, to reassure us that they are doing something about it, when really, if you look at the numbers, it's not that much.
Well, John Vine, former independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, thanks so much for your time on this important issue.
Well, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood said that there is no place for illegal working in our communities. That is why we have surged enforcement activity to the highest level in British history to illegal migrants in the black economy, so they have nowhere to hide.
She added, "I'll stop at nothing to restore order and control our borders."
Right, well, 60 minutes after 1 o'clock, Labour has told Elon Musk to rein in his AI chatbot Grok after it was accused of generating what ministers call appalling deepfake images of women and children.
Well, a new criminal offence for creating AI-generated sexualised images will come into force this week after Ofcom opened their investigation into Grok yesterday. But the Liberal Democrats, well, they're demanding an immediate ban of Twitter.
Well, joining us now is Professor of Cyber Policy and Security, Melanie Garson. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us. OK, let's talk about this. A lot of people are saying that actually, if anything should be banned, it should simply just be Grok's ability to do what it's doing that nobody likes, rather than trying to block a platform. Is it actually possible, A, to even block Grok from doing those things, and B, to block X?
Let me take, good afternoon, and let me take the second part of that question first. So, is it possible to block X in the UK? Absolutely. The government can take emergency measures to the internet service providers that can actually block at the source the use of X coming into the country. There are ways around for people that use VPNs, etc., etc., but fundamentally they can take that action. Is it possible for Elon Musk, for Grok itself to be stopped from producing these images? Absolutely. This is, the guardrails that the developers that go into the technology that allows it to be done. We know that already the decision was taken to put it behind a paywall. And they know that there's constant moderation policies so that anyone uploading illegal content will be dealt with. The problem with X and dealing with this is right now that the content moderation departments have been fundamentally eviscerated. So doing this at the kind of pace and scale as the images are being created is a massive problem. But can Grok itself have guardrails put into it to stop it? Absolutely.
But Melanie, we know that, yes, there can be attempts at putting guardrails into generative AI, But there are also ways that people can always find themselves to get around those guardrails. You can do the same with Google's Gemini or OpenAI's ChatGPT. If you're clever enough with your prompt, if you convince the AI that you're writing a novel or that you're doing something strange, you can get it into the frame of mind, so to speak, where it will produce something that might well get around those guardrails. It's called jailbreaking. It's a very common thing that happens with AI software. Potentially the difference with Grok on X is that it's public for everyone to see, rather than private with how someone behaves with their own personal AI account. I mean, is this really that different with Grok?
I think what we're seeing with the difference with Grok and its intersection with the platform is the dissemination of the images and this wide shared, the sharing and the dissemination of the images. And if you notice, a lot of what is, well, in some cases it's flat out bans, but the discussion is, and this is where it's veering onto this tension with free speech, the discussion is not allowing the app to do it on non-consensual images. And this is where you're taking images without anybody's consent and nudifying them or creating sexualized content with them, and particularly of minors and vulnerable individuals.
This gets really fuzzy, though, doesn't it? Because someone putting Keir Starmer in a bikini, frankly, it's kind of funny. Someone putting Elon Musk in a bikini, he's retweeted that himself. People have put me in a bikini on Twitter in the last week.
Not on Twitter, but...
do you know what? I don't mind.
All right, yeah.
How do we define in law where it crosses that line? Where is that line? What is the definition of a sexualised image versus when someone's just trying to have a bit of fun?
I think it would be very clear in the case of minors and vulnerable populations. I don't think that's...
minors, absolutely clear. What is a vulnerable population?
Well, vulnerable, I mean, and it tends to be a lot of these images are disproportionately used women, and it also because of, and whilst you may find it funny, or where characters may find it funny, or even leadership sometimes could be put as fair game in the sort of satire category. If you take an average woman where that in the working world, or a CEO, where that can then come and discredit her ability to do her job, is it a form of undermining authority? Would she be not able to get a job in the future because of these images?
But you're talking about a CEO. I mean, is putting Jeff Bezos in a bikini a sexualised image? I mean, these are positions of power and authority. Are we not allowed to lampoon them?
I think there's a difference between, individual figures being lampooned, but these are not, it's not being done against CEOs. It could be done, think about it as revenge. It's formed in the same category of what about it forms in revenge pornography, just a normal person living their life, and an ex decides that they want to do.
Do you see what I mean, where we get this fuzzy sort of area? Because, yes, some of the cases you say are absolutely beyond the pale, but then there are others that would be completely legitimate in a free society. And it seems that we're using a mallet to try and deal with an egg.
No, I don't know.
And a lot of it is and this isn't the first time this has happened. Meta had a court case against a company called Crush AI, again, that was advertising these services, wouldn't take them down. This is going to intensify as we get convergence with things like smart glasses. Imagine this being done on site rather than just being demand, and how that is where it's an infringement on someone else's rights to privacy, somebody else's rights to liberty, somebody else, and what that is doing. We get this tension of rights. I think we have to look at the scale, and when it comes to the government having to do something about it, look about what is the type of society we want to live in.
All right, thank you very much. Melanie Garson, really good to talk to you. She's the Professor of Cyber Policy and Security. I think it'd be really obvious as to which ones should be allowed and which shouldn't be allowed, but I do agree that facility on Grok, Elon Musk needs to get a handle on that, because you can't be doing that.
Well, you think it's going to be obvious, but then how do you define that in textual law?
Well, I think you can.
That's difficult.
No, I think you can.
Go on, then.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I think you can. I don't have to do that.
I admire your confidence. I just think it's a lot harder to do in actual textual language, and you're going to get often perverse outcomes when you try to be that broad.
No, I think you can put something in place, but I also think that it's quite clear when it's children and especially women, if they don't want to be seen in that way. I think it's quite clear, and Elon Musk needs to do something.
So only women, then?
No, I just said women and children. This is some women, children. It could be men
for example, you could do an AI-generated lampooning picture of a male politician or a male prime minister or president,
women, children,
but not of a female one.
No, I didn't say that. You're just being silly. It's the person feels that you have used their image in a way that they have not agreed to it.
Well, that's subjective. That's entirely subjective.
No, it's not. No, it's not subjective.
If the person feels... I mean, come on, we can't put that in law.
What are you talking about? If I see an image of me where I've been manipulated and put in a certain way and I didn't give permission for that...
Yeah, that's currently legal.
Well, if I'm not happy with it,
what if
there should be some way...
puts your head on a pigeon, say? I mean, do you think that should be illegal?
I didn't say it's illegal, but I'm just saying that there needs to be a line. It's quite clear where that line is.
People should be able to, you know, make mocking images of public figures.
No, I think people can have an opinion and oversight on that. I do believe they can. I don't see why anything.
I think it's thorny.
No, I don't think so. I think it's quite easy. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, the BBC will try to take legal steps to force President Trump's $10 billion defamation lawsuit to be dropped.
Well, good luck with that one. All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
All right, let's go live now to Downing Street, where our political editor, Christopher Hope, has just left a briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman. Christopher, what can you tell us?
I can tell you it's soaking wet in Downing Street, Nana and Tom. Oliver, just show there's a river flowing down. It's called the River Downing Street now, not the Downing Street itself. It's unbelievable. I'm standing in a in a lake here for reporting for GB News. But I'm happy, of course I'm happy, even though it's pouring with rain.
Chopper, are you the only journalist in the streets? Have we left you there on your lonesome?
We are the only one. There's a further reporter to the left of the camera here, but otherwise there's no other UK TV channels here. It's what I do for you, Tom and Nana. I will do what I can to bring you the reporting we need to have on our channel. Very briefly, the PM's had a political cabinet with his team this morning. He told them he wanted to see more and hear more working class voices around the cabinet table. He referenced in this meeting his brother and sister and said the government should be fighting every day for the people who have suffered so much under low growth through lack of opportunities. Don't forget, we know he thinks that goes back to 2008, the banking crisis, through the Tories and into this Labour government. He wants more growth. In the briefing just now with the PM spokesman, the PM spokesman refused to, or didn't deny, that the PM is currently off Twitter. Now, Sir Keir Starmer last tweeted on Thursday. He wouldn't say whether Sir Keir Starmer is now off this site. The PM spokesman said this, that the X, the Grok app on X, is a weapon of abuse. Moving it to the premium platform protects abusers over women and children. This is against basic British values supported by the vast majority of British people. On criticism on GB News last night from Sarah Rogers, who is a senior State Department official, he said this is about women and girls. He's very clear, the PM, that the UK supports freedom of speech. It's not about freedom of expression. He talked also in this briefing with the PM spokesman about this Hillsborough law. It's been delayed till next week after amendments made last week to ensure that spies and other members of the security services could be subject to a duty of candour when things go wrong. They say that Hillsborough will remain in our national consciousness, but there's a legal duty, including on those national security services, to report when things go wrong. No concerns about the Chinese embassy, despite reports today showing us what's in those 208 secret rooms, so that we are told that any potential national security issues have now been dealt with. And also, just finally, they're looking at this announcement on pubs, probably moving to, sources say, until next week. This is a specific issue for pubs and their business rates, not on a wider hospitality.
All right, Christopher, quite a comprehensive list. Thank you very much. Really good to talk to you.
We'll let you go get dry. I mean, my goodness me, the things you do for us, Christopher Hope. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, let's move on. The BBC will take legal steps now to try and force President Donald Trump's $10 billion defamation lawsuit over its edit of the Panorama episode to be dismantled.
Well, joining us now is the former BBC executive Roger Bolton. Roger, this is clearly, I suppose, what the BBC thinks is going to save their bacon.
Well, I mean, it's initiated by Donald Trump, who wants $5 billion for a programme that probably wasn't seen in the United States. This case has been put down. I think it may be seen next year. The BBC has a confidence that it doesn't apply because, you know, you've got to show about three different things. One is that it's been seen widely in Florida. It wasn't. Secondly, that it had significantly affected the election while Trump won Florida. And thirdly, that it in some ways damaged his reputation. I think that's questionable. So it won't happen for a year. It's been put down for, I think, 2025, and we'll see what happens then. But, you know, this is part of a process which is going on in the United States, where Trump is trying to intimidate newspapers, broadcasters. He's attacked PBS. He's trying to persuade those people who need his approval for big deals to actually make sure that their journalists act more favourably towards him. He's interested in power. He's not interested in justice, and he's not interested in fairness. And I don't think this will succeed.
Well, I mean, he's the leader of the free world. Of course, he's interested in power. That's what he does. He's leading the country. But look,
no, he said his own morality. If you look what he said about his own morality.
Okay, let's just park that for a moment. But I'm just saying that, of course, he's interested in power. I don't think that's a surprise there. But this is more about the damage to the BBC's reputation, because whatever you think about Donald Trump, that was a very, very badly edited clip, which was done in a way that even breaches their own guidelines, because I know, because I worked for them, and that would never have been allowed when I was there. And I think that's the point. Think of the damage that this is doing to the BBC's reputation. So they can fight it tooth and nail, they can say all these things, But as a journalist, I know, and as a viewer, even if you support the BBC, you would know that what they did was very bad and very damaging to their global status as a bastion of broadcasting.
Well, it's a mistake. It shouldn't have been made, and the BBC has apologised. But you have chosen to focus on this. It might be more sensible to focus on Trump and what he's attempting to do. Remember, what this is about is him trying to stop the proper election results being ratified, to stop his own vice presidents of ratifying, to calling a range of people to come to Washington to try and prevent that happening. What both houses of Parliament decided was a form of coup, a self-coup they called it, and they voted for his impeachment on this issue, didn't get a sufficient majority for it to go through. Let's look at the wider picture. He tried to stop a democratic election. There's been no evidence subsequently at all, that anything was rigged. That's the first point. The second thing, what he's trying to do now is to silence opposition to him within the United States and, if possible, elsewhere. Look what happened after the shootings in Minneapolis. Imagine if in this country there'd been a shooting and the Justice Secretary had immediately gone on television saying it was a terrorist, the police have done this in self-defense and so on, and passing judgment about the motives of the victim before you know the facts. I think, the BBC shouldn't get off lightly for making a mistake like this, but don't make it about the BBC only. The larger question is what Donald Trump is trying to do, and which is to silence opposition. And if you opposed him and you were in the United States, he'd try and silence you as well.
Right, Roger. Thank you very much, Roger Bolton. He's the BBC executive, a former BBC executive. Thank you for your thoughts.
Well, it's time for the Great British Giveaway now, and time is ticking on for your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date. Here are the details.
There's just 3 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to make 2026 the year of yes. That's yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to making all of those dreams come true this year. What would you spend all of that cash on? 2026 could be the year you spend more time spending with an incredible £85,000 in your bank. Just make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 9th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right, well, good luck indeed. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, the French President Emmanuel Macron's new voluntary national service scheme is flying, with the French Air Force receiving 800 applications for 600 places. So is this what we need here in Britain?
I'm not sure who would join, but all of that and much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. It's a bit wet out there at the moment, but also markedly milder than it was this time last week. However, we do have colder air to the northwest of the UK. That's going to make its way southeastwards as we go through the next 12 hours or so. Before that, there are 2 fronts lying across the country, bringing a fair amount of cloud and rain, particularly across much of England and Wales. A lot of that rain is clearing away towards the east-southeast, but it's going to take quite a while to clear away from some far southeastern parts. Elsewhere, brighter weather pushing its way in, but also a fair few showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland in particular. Like I said, colder air feeding its way in, so turning chillier towards the northwest despite the brighter skies, but staying milder towards the south and southeast. Here, as we go through into the evening, quite cloudy, some damp weather across parts of East Anglia and the far southeast, mostly dry but cloudy in the southwest. Elsewhere, across the rest of England and Wales, and also Northern Ireland and Scotland, some decent clear skies as we go through the evening and the start of the night, but also a fair few showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland. And with the cold air across us, some of those showers will be falling as sleet or snow over modest high ground. Most places are going to have a dry night with lots of clear skies, the exception being in the far south-southeast, where it's going to stay quite cloudy, a bit damp at times, and also more showers piling in across parts of Scotland. But with those clear skies in other areas, well, temperatures are going to drop, widely getting close to, if not below, freezing, so we can expect quite a widespread frost. There will also be some icy patches and some freezing fog patches as well first thing tomorrow morning. Those freezing fog patches could take a little while to clear as we go through the day, but actually otherwise a lot of bright weather for most places, except in the far south-southeast, staying quite cloudy, damp here, and across some western parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland we're going to see cloud and rain feeding in. Despite the bright skies, it is going to be a chilly day for most.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the M5 southbound in Worcestershire, a crash between Junction 4A and Junction 5 is closing one lane, with conditions expected to improve before 2 this afternoon. In Thurrock, the A13 eastbound is shut between the A126 and the A1012 after a collision, and traffic should ease before 2 this afternoon. In Surrey, the M23 northbound has one lane closed between Junction 9 and Junction 8 following an incident, clearing after 2:15. And on the trains, South Western Railway and Southern report major disruption at Havant. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 40 minutes after 1 o'clock. Now, President Macron's new voluntary national service scheme appears to be off to a flying start, with the French Air Force receiving 800 applicants for 600 places on day one.
Well, the high interest is seen as a sign that the government may achieve its aim of recruiting 3,000 volunteers this year. But could we achieve the same levels of enthusiasm here in Britain?
I wonder. Well, joining us now is the Deputy Editor of French news publication Corsair, Jeremy Stubbs. Jeremy, thank you for joining us. So talk to us about this, because that's quite impressive, I would say. The first day, 800 recruits is only after 600. I mean, I'd dread to see whether... I doubt that would be so successful here.
Well, obviously, the Air Force, or as we should say, the Air and Space Force now, is very attractive to a certain number of people as a sort of Top Gun vibe to it. But they're very likely to fill the 3,000 places by this summer. But there's a lot of preparation in this, because there was a previous scheme, very rudimentary, for people at high school, which was recruiting 40,000 people, volunteers, in 2024. Now, it was very scaled down, nothing like this, but it shows there was an interest. And there are lots of partnerships between schools and the Ministry of Defence in France. Some people on the left complain about that, but it helps to create a certain sensibility amongst children and school leavers about the military. So this is not coming out of nowhere. And as far as I know, Britain has not done anything similar to encourage the fighting spirit.
To roll the pitch, to lay the groundwork. Although, does it, I mean, with that point taken and understood, perhaps have some people been a little bit too curmudgeonly, a bit too dour, a bit too lacking in belief of Generation Z? I mean, could it be that Generation Z aren't the sort of lay in bed, lay about, rather scroll on TikTok than fight a war generation that's often lampooned, that actually these people are up to it? Many of them are willing.
Yes, there are always people who are willing, but you've got to give them the opportunity, and you've also got to give out the message that doing things is good for the country. And it has to be said that a certain dose of fear can also help. So people, you know, many politicians in Europe have been sounding off about the danger of war, coming war, trench warfare, etc., coming again. in the right dosage, this is a good thing. But we're still getting a lot of people on the left here who are complaining about too much militarization. These people are never happy.
Well, it's interesting you say. So really, it's more laying the groundwork, because we don't really have anything, as you said, in this country to do that. Do you think that if perhaps we did start this at the governments, do you think that perhaps the governments need to start thinking about doing that here in this country and sort of laying something to create some form of volunteer type thing or some form of national service to get people, young people, interested in army?
Well, I believe something is underway in the UK, but it's not as ambitious. I mean, it has to be said, this costs money. Now, the French want to be recruiting 50,000 volunteers a year in 10 years' time. So they're going to invest billions in this. But I mean, there are questions you have to ask yourself. In Britain, we spend more on defence than they do in France, but we have a smaller army. How does that work? I don't understand what's happening in Britain. I'm sure there are perfectly good generals and leaders who know what to do, but they must be being held back by the politicians.
And frankly, politicians who want to do big investment projects are two aircraft carriers, for example. Some people said that these are sort of vanity projects that are not quite in tune with modern warfare, that is more about little things, drones, asymmetric warfare.
We don't have anyone to put on the carriers. There's no one to put on them, is there?
Also that. I mean, clearly we've got a big problem when it comes to procurement and military investment and all the rest of it in this country. But I wonder, I mean, is this all changing? Is there just a mindset shifting, not just in France, not just in Britain? Frankly, has what's gone in Ukraine and the new American administration, the new ambitions of NATO, the questions over Denmark, has all of this just created a sense that it's a very different world than it even was a couple of years ago?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that a lot of people have understood that in France. In France, there's a long tradition of what you would call the citizen's army, whereby any citizen could conceivably be called up, whereas in Britain, we've always relied on professionals until things get really, really desperate. So they even had compulsory military service until 1995. And there are people around who still have memories of this and who even know how that gave them an opportunity that made their later careers. So there's a bit more of a culture. I mean, Britain, it has to be said, we've got a lot of military historians who talk a lot about war. We don't have enough people, though, talking of the necessity of preparing for war now. And
I think
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're putting people off, actually, even attempting to prosecute people who've done things in combat, which I don't think encourages anything. Jeremy Stubbs, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. He's the deputy editor of the French news publication Corsair.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. If you're in search of a little bit of holiday sunshine, perhaps even in the south of France, if you can avoid all the cadets and young army people running around, here's the weather in Europe.
There's only 800 of them.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello. If you're heading away for some winter sun, there's plenty of sunny weather across the Mediterranean, into Spain and Portugal, some wet weather through the rest of this week, but plenty of sunshine for parts of the Mediterranean, particularly into Greece. A risk of showers for Italy, parts of Croatia as well through this week, but it's Spain and Portugal that's seeing the particularly wet weather through the rest of this week. Slightly fresher feel for the Canary Islands on Wednesday, but it does look like temperatures come up more closer to those 19-20 degrees by the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, pub bosses say they face financial ruin after Rachel Reeves' stealth tax raid in the budget. As pint prices are ramped up, opening hours are cut and staff are laid off in desperate attempts to keep running.
So this morning we're asking, would you pay more for your pint to save local pubs?
Well, joining us now is pub owner Mark Bridgen and Communications Officer for the IEA, Reem Ibrahim. Really good to see you both this morning. Mark, let's start with you. We've spoken to you a lot about your lovely pub. Would you want people to pay more for a pint in order to save your business?
Well, it's looking like the only option. Yeah, with the increased taxes on every level and now the stress around rates increase and valuation agency, I don't know anyone that is making any money, so it feels like the only thing to do is to raise your prices. The irony is that actually at the moment many of us are actually putting down our prices to try and get people through the doors. You know, in a desperate bid to stay alive, we're having to, try and offer even more value.
Do you think the government is just tone deaf to the plight of our landlords of pubs and restaurants across the country?
They absolutely are. I mean, over 21,000 pubs have closed since 1980. That's half of that in the last 2 decades alone. So I really do think that the government have taxed, regulated, restricted pubs to the oblivion. But this is where I disagree with Mark. I don't think it's up to businesses themselves to say, you know what, we're going to remove our profit margins even further. We know that the hikes in national insurance contributions and increase in the minimum wage have a huge impact on small businesses.
GBNews, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Now, Rachel Reeves is set to announce a climb down on her decision to impose higher costs on Britain's struggling pubs after receiving strong backlash from hard-hit businesses. All of this comes as Conservatives accuse the Chancellor of having misled the public over the tax rates on pubs after she declared that she would cut business rates to a 35-year low in the November budget.
Well, let's cross live to a pub now with Anna Riley, our Yorkshire and Humber reporter. Anna.
Good afternoon, Tom and Nana. Well, yes, more than 1,000 Labour MPs have been banned from their locals by publicans due to the tax raid on pubs. We're joined now by Maureen. She's the landlady pulling a pint here at the Rock Inn. It's in Bramley, part of Rachel Reeves's constituency, but the Chancellor is not welcome here. Maureen, thank you for having us. Why is it that you've banned Rachel Reeves?
I just think that she's trying to finish off pubs altogether. I don't think they want people in pubs talking to each other, saying how bad things have got. This government have not stood by what they offered in the mandates before they were elected. I don't know about... The Tories said that Maggie Thatcher wasn't to turn. Well, Rachel Reeves is just spinning.
12th U-turn so far under this government. What does this pub mean to you? I mean, you've been running it for almost 40 years now. It's a real community hub, isn't it?
Well, that's why I'm upset, because it is a community hub and it's the customers who are suffering. They can't afford to come out. I've still got the same customers, but once they used to come out twice, 3 times a week. Now they can only come out once or twice if they're lucky. They just can't afford to do it. All the bills they've got to pay, everything's gone up. Leckie's gone up, gas has gone up, everything. Go into the shops, price of food for them to pay. So I've got decent customers who work and they're the ones who are suffering.
And what more support would you like to see from the government?
I just hope that, I mean, this thing that they were going to raise the all the different bills, we're struggling with electric, we're struggling with gas. You can't expect someone to come and sit in your pub and be cold. So I just want more help, whatever they can do, instead of giving our money away. I mean, I'll help anybody, but all our money's going on to illegal people coming into the country and getting more than the people who already live here, and I don't agree with it.
How does it feel when you are struggling and it's difficult heating it? You know, maybe it'll be a help with business rates, but extending hours is not going to help you.
Extending hours is a stupid idea, because if they can't afford to come for the hours that we've got, why would you want to extend them? That's not going to help us.
And how does it feel when you see an industry that's changed so much, you know, even just in the last 5 years?
Yeah, well, this is my third pub in Leeds, but I've been in this one, as I say, this year, coming up 40 years, and the difference is unbelievable. It's sad. People used to be coming in and having a laugh, and everybody who seems to be coming in now are all upset about what's happening in the country.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you for having us here
You're welcome.
in the Rock in Bramley, and we'll be heading to a pub down the road as well to speak to the landlord and landlady there about what they feel about this potential U-turn and what they'd like to see from the Chancellor for the pub industry.
Forward to that.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain. Thank you so much. On GB News, lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, breaking news in the last few moments. Nottingham University Hospitals has declared a critical incident due to sustained pressures as they're treating more than 500 patients a day now, far above the norm. More on that breaking news story after your latest look at the weather forecast.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. It's a bit wet out there at the moment, but also markedly milder than it was this time last week. However, we do have colder air to the northwest of the UK. That's going to make its way southeastwards as we go through the next 12 hours or so. Before that, there are two fronts lying across the country, bringing a fair amount of cloud and rain, particularly across much of England and Wales. A lot of that rain is clearing away towards the east-southeast, but it's going to take quite a while to clear away from some far southeastern parts. Elsewhere, brighter weather pushing its way in, but also a fair few showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland in particular. Like I said, colder air feeding its way in, so turning chillier towards the northwest despite the brighter skies, but staying milder towards the south and southeast. Here, as we go through into the evening, quite cloudy, some damp weather across parts of East Anglia and the far southeast, mostly dry but cloudy in the southwest. Elsewhere, across the rest of England and Wales, and also Northern Ireland and Scotland, some decent clear skies as we go through the evening and the start of the night, but also a fair few showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland. And with the cold air across us, some of those showers will be falling as sleet or snow over modest high ground. Most places are going to have a dry night with lots of clear skies, the exception being in the far south-southeast, where it's going to stay quite cloudy, but damp at times, and also more showers piling in across parts of Scotland. But with those clear skies in other areas, well, temperatures are going to drop, widely getting close to, if not below, freezing, so we can expect quite a widespread frost. There will also be some icy patches and some freezing fog patches as well first thing tomorrow morning. Those freezing fog patches could take a little while to clear as we go through the day, but actually otherwise a lot of bright weather for most places, except in the far south-southeast, staying quite cloudy, damp here, and across some western parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland we're going to see cloud and rain feeding in. Despite the bright skies, it is going to be a chilly day for most.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 3 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to make 2026 the year of yes. That's yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to making all of those dreams come true this year. Just make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus SMS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversations.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 2 o'clock on Tuesday, the 13th of January. I'm Nana Akua.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
Move back. I'm arresting you for facilitating the legal entry of migrants to the UK.
Yes, it's a migration crackdown. Will this new online deterrent from the government work? A migration-focused TikTok account has been launched by the Home Office to, in their words, battle misinformation, people smugglers, and ensure a wider audience is provided with evidence-based facts.
Yes, and Secure Borders UK launched on TikTok today, showcasing the British government's attempts to tackle illegal migration. But is this anything more than yet another gimmick?
Keir Starmer has said that nothing is off the table. And I would say, from America's perspective, that likewise nothing is off the table when it comes to free speech.
A warning from the US Undersecretary of State there, as a new criminal offence for creating AI-generated sexualised images will come into force this week after Ofcom opened an investigation in Britain into Elon Musk's AI platform Grok.
China has been accused of plotting to build a hidden underground chamber beneath its new London embassy close to sensitive City of London communication wires. Experts warn that the bunker could threaten sensitive financial data.
The BBC is allegedly trying to ensure Donald Trump's £7.5 billion defamation lawsuit is thrown out of court. The Beeb claims the president has failed to plausibly allege the broadcaster published the documentary with actual malice.
And what's happening to the great British boozer? The Chancellor is being accused of gaslighting the country, claiming that pub bills are at a record low, while landlords stare down soaring costs and wait nervously to see if promised relief ever materialises. I think it's absolutely tragic what Rachel Reeves is doing to the pubs. I know she probably thinks she's doing a good thing or saving the economy in some way, but frankly, you can't carry on taxing and taxing and taxing. I was just reading about a mansion tax as well, which will drag properties worth 1.5 million into the higher rate tax, but she's planning to revalue them. So the kind of tactic she used on the pubs, it's just ridiculous.
Say you were a secretive temperance campaigner. Someone who'd infiltrated government at the highest levels with a nefarious idea to try and shut down as many pubs as you possibly could. What would you do that's particularly different to what this government has done? Because you might say, let's tighten up the drink driving laws. Well, this government is going to do that. That's a harbinger of doom for many rural pubs. You might say, well, let's make it much more expensive to hire temporary workers. Well, the government did that with the lowering the threshold of national insurance. You might say, make it a lot harder to hire young workers. Well, that's what they've done with their minimum wage price floor rising. You might say, well, let's whack down enormous valuation rises on the business rates these pubs pay. Some of these pubs are getting 600% increases in the valuation of their business rates. Now, the government is slightly rowing back on that, but they're still going to be paying more. You might say all of these things start to add up to look like an agenda. An agenda against our pubs.
Do you know what? I don't think she's clever enough, or they are clever enough to even work that out. They thought that what she's done, what they've done is they've looked and thought, well, there's this many pubs, we'll get this and this of that, and then we do this and that's how much it equals. Ha ha. She didn't consider that actually the unintended consequences of all the plethora of things that have come down the line for pubs, all the things you listed, Tom, that would effectively make them defunct, and then she wouldn't have any pubs to take the money from. A bit like the VAT raid on private schools, where she thought, I've got this many private schools, I'll get this much money, I can allow that many to close, but I'll get, what, $500 million? Or is it 1.6 billion? Sadly, for Rachel, again, over 100 private schools have closed, 25,000 kids are out of their schools and now in the state sector, and the 6,500 teachers that they promised, well, many teachers are quite angry because many teachers have lost their jobs already. It's just an absolute something show.
Cluster bomb.
You've got it.
There we go. Well, do get involved. What are your thoughts? gbnews.com/your say is, as always, the way to join in the programme. But in the meantime, let's get an update on those latest news headlines with Sam.
Very good afternoon to you. Just after 2 o'clock. Well, the top story this hour, the Home Office has launched its biggest ever crackdown on illegal working, with raids and arrests now at record levels. More than 17,000 raids on nail bars, car washes, barbers and takeaways have led to over 12,000 arrests in just 18 months. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, says there is no place for illegal working and that migrants in the so-called black economy now, she says, have nowhere to hide. Ministers say the surge is designed to choke off the pull factors that drive illegal migration. Well, earlier today on the programme, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Matt Vickers, told us he thinks Labour are to blame for the boom in illegal working.
Anybody caught working illegally should be deported, that the wages that they've managed to get out of that work should be taken from them and used to help remove them from the country. The reality is the government's putting a good spin on numbers today, but the last figures from the National Crime Agency said that 84% of interventions were not high impact, and that actually that numbers were down 16% in their last annual report. So there's different ways to use stats. The government are using them to their best advantage, but the reality is we should be arresting a lot more people who are working illegally, because there are a lot more people coming into the country illegally.
Well, breaking news from Iran, where reports have been emerging in the last few hours that 2,000 people at least have now been killed in protests there. A huge jump from earlier estimates that were around 600 this time yesterday. Tehran says the dead include security forces and blames what it calls terrorists, as an internet blackout makes it impossible at this stage to verify the true death toll. That comes as the US virtual embassy in Iran has also issued a blunt warning to American citizens, saying leave now and urging people to escape by land to Turkey or Armenia if they can. Those who can't are being told to hunker down, keep a low profile. Meanwhile, in Washington, Donald Trump has been briefed on covert and military options, including missile strikes and cyber attacks. Iran, though, has said it is open to negotiations, but still prepared for war, as pressure now mounts over what European leaders call the regime's final days and weeks. Here, Sir Keir Starmer has warned X that if it can't control its AI tool Grok, the government will, threatening to strip the platform of its right to self-regulate. Media watchdog Ofcom has now launched an urgent investigation into claims that the chatbot's being used to create sexualised images of women and children. The Technology Secretary says such images are weapons of abuse, as ministers move this week to make non-consensual AI pornography a criminal offence. Lord Peter Mandelson has issued a personal apology to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, for continuing a friendship with him after his conviction. After days of backlash, Mandelson admitted, "I was wrong to believe him, and I apologise unequivocally to the women and girls who suffered." The apology follows his dismissal as UK ambassador to Washington after emails showed he stayed in contact with Mr Epstein years after his conviction in 2008. And just a brief breaking line to bring you before we hand you back to Tom and Nana. Reports in the Times emerging that the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is set to join and accept an invitation to join President Donald Trump's new so-called Board of Peace to run Gaza. The White House saying that board will oversee the reconstruction of Gaza after the Israel-Hamas war. Mr Trump calling it the gathering of the most important leaders of the most important nations. Tony Blair, of course, tipped to lead that group, but reports, as I say, just coming into us from the Times, that Sir Keir Starmer is also expected to accept an appointment on that Board of Peace. That's it for me. For now, I'll hand you back to Tom and Nana.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 2. Now, the government claims immigration enforcement raids have hit their highest level in British history as the Home Office ramps up its crackdown on illegal migrant workers.
Critics claim that despite the encouraging number of crackdown raids, the illegal job economy is still thriving because of Labour's soft position on the borders.
Well, let's cross live to Westminster and speak to GB News political editor Christopher Hope, now in the dry. Thank you for braving the torrential rain of Downing Street. But this is a serious comms push this week from the government on migration. They think they're onto a winner.
Yeah, they do. I mean, the figures are impressive. A three-quarters increase in enforcement raids since Labour came to power. They've got they are looking at there's 17,000 raids, 12,300 arrests, the highest number since 2019. The last Tory government have got a bit distracted with its Rwanda plan. It put all its effort into getting that Rwanda plan to work. It didn't work because of the courts basically stopped it and watered it down, so it was pointless. And then it was axed by Keir Starmer on his second day in office. Because of the focus on Rwanda, they allowed a lot of people to be cited and kept in hotels, which became a problem for the Labour government. And now they're trying to deal with that and do raids to try and stop the pull factors. The idea of these raids and putting them onto a new TikTok channel called Secure Borders on TikTok, this Chinese engine, they're trying to, you'll see it there on screen now, they're trying to do that to show directly both to the people smugglers and to those trying to come here that if you do come here, the government says it will find you and deport you. Now, the numbers they've got here are a fraction of those who have come here in the past few years, but they're trying to deter people from coming here. Another way of doing that, of course, is the digital ID cards, which we'll see more of later this month from Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. This is an attempt here to tackle the temptation to come here using this TikTok account. And number 10 says they are hopeful it will work. They are trying to tackle the people smugglers, the gangs, and those trying to come here wherever they are. And that leads me on to the next idea. The issue from lobby is the vexed issue of X and how Grok, this AI platform, is being used to, in the government's eyes, sexualise images of children and young women. Now, the government is being very firm on that today. They are saying these are weapons of abuse. This goes against the British values of most people in this country. They say that if X needn't wait for Ofcom, the regulator, to complete its inquiry launched yesterday. They can take action now. The PM hasn't posted Tom and Nana to X since Thursday last week. Now, we asked repeatedly in the briefing, does that mean the PM is now boycotting X until these measures are dealt with? The government wouldn't comment on that, but they also
said this is not about freedom of speech, as Sarah B. Rogers told GB News last night to Bev Turner on the Late Show Live. They say it's not about freedom of speech, simply about trying to look after women and children.
All right, Christopher Hope, thank you very much.
Well, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has said in relation to the illegal working conditions that there is no place for illegal working in our communities. That's why we've surged enforcement activity to the highest level in British history, so illegal migrants in the black economy have nowhere to hide.
She went on to say that I will stop at nothing to restore order and control our borders.
Well, now the Reform Party has claimed that the British Army's plans to buy US-made Black Hawk helicopters could jeopardise thousands of jobs in the British defence industry.
Well, Deputy Leader Richard Tice said that this purchase would come at the expense of helicopters produced by British manufacturers.
Well, shall we get the Liberal Democrat view on this one? Joining us now is the Lib Dem MP for Yeovil, Adam Dance. This is I suppose a difficult and thorny issue for Britain defence, because at one point the transatlantic alliance is very, very important, but there's also British jobs on the line here.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good evening, Tom. For me, this is about Leonardo in my constituency. As you've probably heard, I did an urgent question on Leonardo. They've been waiting for the new medium-lift helicopter from this government and the previous government. We've been told multiple times that we would hear about when the contract would be delivered. I was told back in July last year we'd hear very soon, and then September. This is the only helicopter factory left in the UK which build end-to-end, and we really have to push to secure this contract. So I am pushing that in government, and we need to buy British, and we need to secure that contract here. So the Minister and the Secretary of State, they really need to get together, because this could have a huge effect on my constituency, but also the Southwest. Over 12,000 jobs across the region supply chain would go if this contract isn't delivered.
Good afternoon, Adam. It's not, you say good evening, so I thought I'd just let you know. It's good afternoon, Britain. But Adam, look, I sort of exist in a world of competition, and I believe competition is key, and you do have to be competitive. What is it? Is there anything specifically amazing about these Black Hawks which would have some strategic advantage over the helicopters that would be produced here in the UK?
No one's been mentioning Black Hawks with this contract at all. This is about the new medium-lift helicopter. Leonardo is the only bidder. Let's just remember that. They are the only bidder. So for the Reform Party to bring up about the Black Hawks yesterday, that hasn't been mentioned by this government or the previous government. This is one bidder for this contract. No other company bidded for this contract. So for me, the government just need to give that contract out. Was one bidder, it's quite simple, get on with it and deliver it. We're not seeing this from the government.
Just one final question on this before we, if you don't mind, get on to just one other issue. I mean, Leonardo is an Italian company. It's not a British-owned company. Yes, it employs people in this country. But is there a risk that when there's only one bidder for a government contract, that procurement in the MOD gets incredibly expensive, that we don't get value for money for what we buy? We spend more than France on our armed forces, and yet our armed forces are a lot smaller. And part of the reason for that is the kit we buy is quite so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, the kit we do buy is expensive, but at the end of the day, you get what you pay for as well. And this is the only bidder. Other companies didn't bid because they didn't feel that they could bid. Well, maybe that could be down to the fact that it didn't financially fit for them. Leonardo are bidded, but let's not forget, Leonardo is the home of British helicopters, was formerly Westlands. The company was set up in 1915, and they've been building aircrafts and for the aerospace ever since 1915. So let's just buy British and let's deliver this for our country. We need defence now more than ever before.
All right. Well, listen, I'll tell you who did mention Black Hawks. It was actually in the Telegraph this morning, so that's where I got my source from, but I appreciate it. OK. But thank you for your thoughts.
Before you let you go, Adam, can we just get a thought on what the Liberal Democrat stance is on Twitter? Of course, your party is, I believe, calling for an immediate ban on the social network. Why is that?
We will be actually discussing this later on as a parliamentary group, so I can't really comment on what the other parliamentarians are thinking at the moment. Look, I'm still on Twitter at the moment. I'm still posting on Twitter at the moment. Whether I might come off Twitter at another time, maybe. I do believe it's fundamentally wrong what Twitter have been doing now with those images, but I still am on Twitter myself personally, and I will be having this debate later on today.
All right, thank you very much. Adam Dance, really good to talk to you. He's the Liberal Democrat MP for Yeovil.
Now, Labour has told Elon Musk to rein in the chatbot Grok after it was accused of generating what ministers call these appalling deepfake images of women and children.
Well, joining us now is media lawyer Paul Tweed. Paul, I'm glad that you're here because I want to get I want to get the definitive on this, because Tom seems to think that there's no way that you can draw a line between what is...
I think it's a complicated issue.
No, hang on. No, that's not what you were saying. You said there's no way you can draw a line between... So I'm saying, look, I agree with some of what the government is saying in terms of the AI tool of Grok, and I believe that you can create a way of limiting it or, creating some legal formula that would ensure that it can't be used for harm. Is that possible to do that?
Yes, most certainly it must be possible. I've been battling with the platforms now for the past decade, and in fact I believe that I was dealing with robots some 10 years ago. Such was the typical responses we were getting back from them. All the platforms have taken the view that they are the judge and jury as to what they can show or what they can facilitate on their platforms. And they've been aided and abetted in this by the legislation that, first of all, in Europe, there's the ECOM directive, which protected them. And in the United States, they've had Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act protecting them. What we need now, in the light of what is developing, and bear in mind, AI is still at its very early stages of development, but given the latest conduct on Grok, draconian steps are required, and they're required by government. They're required directly. I would not certainly rely on the platforms, whether it's Grok or any of the other platforms, to regulate themselves. They require regulation, but it's got to be regulation that is effective and can be enforced.
Paul, with respect, you're putting forward...
Here. Fines do not work.
Paul, with respect, you're putting forward quite a niche view here. If you say even the European Union isn't heavy-handed enough in its regulation of big tech, if you're saying you need draconian, your word, draconian measures on online platforms, I mean, what does that look like? Does that look like treating platforms like publishers, making them liable for what users post on there? Because, I mean, to me, that is destroying the internet as we know it.
Yeah, absolutely. The bottom line is, I mean, I've taken the view that they're publishers from the word go. I mean, they seem to think that they have to be treated differently from GBNews, for instance. I mean, you are regulated not only by Ofcom or whatever, but you're regulated by the various defamation and other privacy laws.
Yes, because I am an employee of GBNews. Paul, Twitter cannot be responsible for the hundreds of millions of users that post on its platform. If you're suggesting that you treat Twitter as a publisher, or indeed Facebook, or Reddit, or Wikipedia for that matter, if they are a publisher, then you can't have any user-generated content, because it would all have to be moderated.
No, that's not true.
No, that's not right.
That's not true.
They are entitled, and they should be monitoring to ensure that it's proper, truthful, appropriate news and facilities. You cannot allow a situation where the likes of Grok can allow their AI bots to basically absolutely humiliate women, children, anyone for that matter. And we've now got to a point where this was inevitable. I mean, this was all coming. It's been coming in the pipeline for years. And they take the view, all the platforms, this isn't just Elon Musk and Twitter, all the platforms take the view, they decide. They decide what should or shouldn't go on. GBNews don't get to decide what they can get away with. You're looking over your shoulder the whole time.
Because we're not a platform.
Yeah, but we are a platform. We are a platform.
We're a broadcast.
No, but we're still a platform.
We're not a platform.
No, we are. We are on a platform.
Not legally.
No, but it's a media platform, so of course it is.
It's a broadcast.
Well, OK, we're a broadcast, but we still sit on a platform, right? So either way, we are regulated. And I agree that people should be free to express their opinions. I have no problem with that. But I'm with you on this with these images. There has to be a line that you cannot cross, and that line must be somewhere in law when it comes to especially other people's images on a platform that is literally, well, there's no real kind of way of regulating them properly.
Yeah, and these platforms aren't running it, for the crack, for as a charity. They're running it for profit, and they're making multi-billions in that profit. As a result, they've been allowed to get so wealthy that the threat of a fine of $1 billion means nothing to them. It doesn't even impact on their share price. So fines and money penalties do not work. It requires aggressive intervention, and if it has to be on an ad hoc basis, so be it. But then that puts the government in the reverse of what Tom's describing there, that the government then have to decide to take action on specific instances rather than have these companies have all got algorithms. They can put an algorithm in place that stops nudity, that stops abuse of they can do that. They can do it quite easily.
Very briefly.
That means
that is what Grok does, though, Paul. There are guardrails in Grok that prevent nudity. That is why this scandal started in the first place, because people realised they couldn't make nude images with Grok, so they tried to get around it. Get around the safeguards by saying, make a picture in a bikini. That's why the bikini trend started, because nudity is banned. And people always find a way around all of these different safeguards.
Tom, I've been over the years, I've been in the front line battling with all these platforms for many years now. And we've had various rounds of very high profile actions involving fake ads, for instance, where, an image of a broadcaster, such as yourself, was used to advertise, say, face cream.
Yes.
And people would be fooled into paying the money out, and these people who are based maybe in Moldova or wherever, scam the money to do that there. And the platforms said, well, look, this is enough. You just tell us about it, and we'll, in due course, take action to knock it down. And it became a bit like the fun fair. You knock Grockham, well, you knock one thing down and another one appears up. We have now gone from fake ads, deep fake, to these AI-created images, which are they're at a level now where this is now going to expand in all directions. Because while the likes of Twitter or Grok can be, if you like, controlled, or it can be, you can ascertain where it's coming from, all these bots are coming in now from all around the world, from the Middle East, from Russia, China, wherever. We can't possibly control them, but we have got to. There's a duty to protect our population, women, children, people who are very, very vulnerable to these things. I've dealt with more over the last decade. I've dealt with clients, including a couple of very well-known journalists who are at risk of suicide.
All right, Paul, we have to leave it there for time reasons. But I'm with you on this, Paul, 100%. Thank you very much to Paul Tweed. He is a media lawyer. There you have it. So it can be done. It can be done.
If you stop platforms being platforms, what Paul was arguing for there is a consistent position, but it does destroy the idea of user-generated content online. No, Twitter would not exist under a regulatory framework like that.
No, it doesn't. He said you could even do it on an ad hoc basis.
No, he said to stop being a publisher, to make the platform liable for the content on it. You do understand what that would mean?
Well, yes, I do, Tom. I'm not stupid.
OK.
I do understand that. Please don't patronise me.
I'm not patronising you.
I think you are just a little bit.
I just think you're wrong on this topic.
Well, you can be wrong. We can have two different opinions, but don't patronise me, because I'm not going to tolerate that.
Well, I don't think anyone did.
Right, I think you did. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
A Jewish MP was banned from visiting a school in Bristol in his own constituency.
Yes, stay with us, all that and much more on GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Now, a Jewish MP was banned from visiting a school in Bristol after a successful campaign by pro-Palestine protesters.
Yes, Damien Egan, the Labour MP for Bristol North East, was due to visit Bristol Brunel Academy, but the visit was cancelled after an intervention by the Palestine Solidarity Campaign.
Now, the Community Secretary, Steve Reid, called the incident an outrage. Joining us now is the CEO of Holocaust Educational Trust, Karen Pollock. To me, I agree with Stephen Reid. It's an absolute outrage that this should be happening and in what it would be deemed an education setting. What are your thoughts on the matter?
I couldn't agree with you more. This is absolutely outrageous. The idea that somebody is stopped from visiting a school because they're Jewish. I mean, where are we? This is 2026. This happened just at the end of 2025. What country are we living in when somebody, because of their religion, their identity, is stopped from coming to a school, particularly when they weren't coming to talk about politics, they were coming, as in Middle Eastern politics, they were coming to talk about life as an MP. I think it is really outrageous, and it begs the question as to how is this even possible? How did this school get away with it, and what should be done about it?
It is particularly shocking, given that this MP has spoken about the plight of the Palestinian people before and has called for a two-state solution and all the rest of it, everything. But of course, these campaigners and elements of the National Education Union have said this isn't about him being Jewish. This is about his support for Israel. Is that a credible line from them?
No. Well, since when have we become sort of the watchdog police to I understand everybody's personal views? When they come, you know, he's coming in a specific role as the representative of the local constituency to talk about a day in the life as an MP, to talk about the values of democracy, to talk about how Parliament works. I think it's disingenuous to suggest this is purely about his views and not because he's Jewish. And also, I just think we've got to understand what a school setting is. A school setting is not supposed to be a place where political beliefs somehow intrude on sort of balance and just on education. There's quite a simple guideline here. You know, politics don't have a place in the classroom. Young people should be able to learn and thrive in a dignified way. And I think this is mob rule. I worry that a school would cave to this sort of pressure. And it sets a bad precedent and is something that we shouldn't just be outraged about it. Something should be done about it.
Well, Karen Pollock, CEO of Holocaust Educational Trust, thank you so much for joining us on this important topic.
All right, well, spokesperson for Bristol Brunel Academy said on the evening before Ms Egan's scheduled visit, we were made aware of the plans for a public protest outside the school. We opted to postpone Mr Egan's visit to ensure everyone would continue to feel safe when entering and exiting school to prevent any disruption to our students' learning.
They say they've remained in contact with Mr Egan. An alternative date has been set and that they've been in contact with the police and followed their advice. We're going to go live to the House of Commons now because the Home Secretary is speaking on Iran.
call Iran to answer for the horrific reports that we are hearing. But this latest conduct by the Iranian regime is no aberration. It is no outlier. Rather, it is all too in keeping with the fundamental nature and track record of this regime. Consistent with its previous conduct towards its own people, as we saw during the lethal repression of protesters led by Iranian women, following the death in custody of Mahsa Amini at the hands of Iran's so-called morality police. Or consistent with its destabilising actions towards its neighbours in the region, as we have seen in its backing of terrorist and extremist proxies of Hezbollah, of Hamas, of the Houthis, and militia groups in Iraq and Syria, and from Iran's barrage of missile attacks on Israel. And consistent too with Iran's malign global impact, whether it be in terms of weapons support for Russia against Ukraine or its nuclear programme. And consistent too with Iran's state threats activities on UK soil, posing danger to dissidents, journalists and the Jewish community here in the UK, with more than 20 potentially lethal Iran-backed plots over the last year alone, as tracked through the vital work of the UK's security agencies. So let me set out the action that the government is taking in coordination with allies in response to this consistent threat that the Iranian regime poses to the stability, security and freedom and to the UK national interest. First, on domestic security threats, we will not tolerate any Iran-backed threats on UK soil. In May, 3 Iranian nationals were charged with offences linked to the Iranian regime under the National Security Act in 2023, and I want to thank the police, security and intelligence services for their tireless work to keep us safe. Last year, we placed Iran on the enhanced tier of the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme to detect, deter and disrupt malign and undeclared efforts to undermine our democracy. We sanctioned the criminal Foxtrot network for the violent threats it posed against Jewish and Israeli targets in Europe on behalf of the Iranian regime. And we have geared up the UK security infrastructure to better tackle hybrid threats. As Home Secretary, I commissioned the review by the Independent Reviewer of Terrorism Legislation, Jonathan Hall, KC, into what more needed to be done so that we could apply counter-terrorism style powers, including on prescription, to state-backed threats as well. And we announced last year that the government will take forward the recommendations so we can deal with all the UK-based threats that we face. Second, support for British citizens. Madam Deputy Speaker, the first duty of any government is the safety and security of our citizens, and my department is working tirelessly to ensure the safety of British nationals in Iran. I spoke yesterday with the UK's ambassador in Tehran about the vital work that he and the team are doing on the ground, and the FCDO is in contact with the relevant Iranian authorities regarding detained British nationals, and their welfare in Iran remains a priority. We are, of course, deeply concerned that Craig and Lindsay Foreman have been charged with espionage in Iran, and just yesterday, Minister Faulkner met with members of the Foreman family, and we continue to raise this case directly with the Iranian authorities. Third, the coordinated economic and diplomatic pressure on this regime. This government and our predecessors have continually raised human rights violations in Iran through the UN and international forums, including most recently, this autumn, resolutions calling for an end to the regime's reprisals against women, against journalists, and against human rights campaigners. But then in October, alongside our E3 partners, France and Germany, the UK triggered the snapback process, which saw the reinstatement of 6 previously terminated UN sanctions resolutions on Iran. We did so because of the repeated failure by the Iranian regime to comply with its nuclear commitments. On the 1st of October, we updated domestic legislation to reapply extensive sanctions measures contained in these resolutions, also going further by designating 71 individuals and entities in sectors which have links to Iran's nuclear programme. Overall, this government has imposed over 220 Iran sanctions designations since coming into office. And we are backing strong sanctions enforcement. Just last week, the UK provided support to the US's seizure of Bella 1, accused of shadow fleet activities and Iran sanctions breaches. And at a time when the sanctions were reinstated in October, I also urged the Iranian regime, even then, to change their approach, to work with the international community to comply with their obligations. I told them then that it would take time to fully implement the UK's sanctions, and during that window they should start compliance and engagement with the international community and end the deception and obfuscation. They have not done so. Weapons inspectors still have not been given access, and far from changing their approach, we have seen instead a reversion to the most brutal forms of repression on their own streets. As a result, I can confirm the UK will bring forward legislation to implement full and further sanctions and sectoral measures. The UK has already designated key players in Iran's oil, energy, nuclear and financial systems. Further measures will target finance, energy, transport, software and other significant industries which are advancing Iranian nuclear escalation. And we will work further with the EU and other partners to explore what additional measures might now be needed in response to developments. And I also send a message to other countries who have sought to avoid implementing UN sanctions or to undermine the legitimacy of the UN sanctions reinstated following the snapback process, because no one should be supporting the kind of approach the Iranian regime is currently taking, and all member states should be fulfilling their UN obligations on such a grave and serious issue. Madam Deputy Speaker, let me say something else about the events in recent days. Just as they did in 2022, it's absolutely clear that the Iranian regime are trying to paint these protests as the result of foreign influence and instigation. They're using that accusation to try and whip up opposition to the protests amongst anti-Western Iranians and try to justify their vicious and sickening attacks on the ordinary civilians marching in the streets. These are nothing but lies and propaganda being spread by a desperate regime. They must not be allowed to undermine a genuine grassroots movement, drawing together people from all parts of Iranian society and spreading across multiple cities and regions. And that is why we and other governments across the world are determined not to play into the hands of the regime or to allow our words or actions to be twisted to support their lies and propaganda. And with a functioning embassy on the ground in Tehran and British nationals being held in Iranian jails, we recognise that responsibility, as previous governments have always done. In the last 18 months, we have taken stronger action to tackle Iranian threats at home and abroad than any recent government, and we have done so with broad cross-party support. That must continue. The world is watching Iran, and the UK will continue to confront the regime's lies, to call out its repression, and to take the steps necessary to protect the UK's interests. I commend this statement to the House.
I call the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Dame Priti Patel.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Foreign Secretary for sight of her statement earlier on. Every day for the last 2 weeks across Iran, we have seen brave and courageous men, women and children standing in defiance of a cruel and barbaric despotic regime which has suppressed lives and freedom for over 5 decades. People are being arrested, attacked and murdered in the streets. It has been reported that over 2,000 people have now been killed in Iran, with one report even suggesting that the real figure is over 12,000, and over 10,000 have been arrested, according to the human rights activists in Iran. Towns have been flooded with soldiers to suppress protests, and hospitals are overwhelmed with the injured and murdered. Thousands upon thousands of Iran's young, like the 23-year-old fashion student Rabina Amini, have been shot, killed, buried by the side of roads as they called for a free Iran. And we've seen reports of executions due to take place for those arrested just days earlier. We cannot let their dreams be buried as we mourn the victims of Tehran's atrocities. These were ordinary Iranians doing extraordinary things, fighting for their freedom. We stand with those brave Iranians, we back their calls for freedom, and we join demands for the regime to end. This is a regime whose cruelty goes beyond the brutality we have seen in recent days. The theocratic terrorists in Iran have for too long threatened regional security, from Hamas to Hezbollah to the Houthis backed by Iran. They have backed Putin's war in Ukraine and China's campaign of repression. They have ignored demands to stop their nuclear weapons program and they circumvent sanctions. They're holding British nationals, Craig and Lindsay Foreman, in cruel captivity. Iran is a hostile state and a threat to our country, a threat to the Middle East and a threat to the world, and Britain must have the resolve to deal with them. So ask the Foreign Secretary, where is the government's resolve to stand up to Iran, back those protesting and work to bring about the end of the cruelty of this regime? As Iranian citizens are sacrificing their lives in the fight for their own liberation, what message of hope and reassurance does the Foreign Secretary give to those risking their lives on the streets of Iran each day? What is being done to challenge the Iranian regime over the violence it's conducting? What is her assessment of the numbers killed and injured? It is right that the Iranian ambassador has finally been summoned, but why has this only happened today? Well, the Foreign Secretary says she's spoken on the phone to her counterpart. What was his response? And did she raise with him the Foreman case? And what was his response? The Iranian regime now claims to have the protests under total control. What assessment has the government made of this claim? Britain and this House should stand with those campaigning for a free and democratic future, and if change comes, we should be ready to support this change. Given the statements from President Trump, what discussions have taken place with the US administration over their plans, and are we aligned with the US and our regional partners? Are all scenarios being considered and planned for, including the potential of UK-US military bases to stop brutality of the Iranian regime? And if the regime is being weakened, what assessment has been made of the risk Iran in terms of retaliating and escalating plots to undermine our security here? Madam Deputy Speaker, last year the US and Israel took direct action to protect Western and regional interests from Iran's nuclear threats. The then government refused to give a view at the time on those actions. They sat on the fence in a feeble attempt not to upset its backbench MPs. As people fight dying for their rights and for democracy, this is no time for weakness, and Britain should be robust in cutting off the Iranian regime and removing the funds they rely on. So will the Foreign Secretary state what further direct sanctions, and I know she's touched on some of this, will be placed specifically on the regime and its key henchmen in particular? Will she confirm that no one from that regime will ever step foot in our country and threaten the security of Britain should they try to flee Iran? Why has it taken so long to implement the reintroduction of sanctions under snapback? And on the IRGC, in opposition, Labour said they would prescribe the IRGC, but they have not done so in government. It is incumbent upon them to share their reasons for not doing so with the House. The Foreign Secretary refers to the report from Jonathan Hall, which she says they will take forward. And of course, that was 8 months ago. So when is this coming? And why was Downing Street briefing yesterday that prescription would not happen? Will they be prescribed? Madam Deputy Speaker, this side of the House will work with the government in the national interest and in the interest of global security and stability to pass legislation and other measures needed to keep us safe from Iran and put maximum pressure on this despotic regime. So a suggestion for the Foreign Secretary: instead of legislating for the £35 billion to rend off Chagos, will she use the time we have in this House to deal with the IRGC and Iran, the regime, and keep us safe, and even use the $35 billion to bolster our defences? Because at this critical moment, Britain must do all we can to stand with Iranians fighting for their freedom and to protect them and us from Tehran's threat.
Foreign Secretary.
Well, can I say I do agree with the Shadow Foreign Secretary in her condemnation of the brutality and the horrendous actions of the Iranian regime and the threats that it poses. I would say to her, she will know that when she was Home Secretary and when I was Shadow Home Secretary, we strongly supported the national security actions on Iran. In fact, I said specifically that I hope the House will be able to come together to support our national security and defend our democracy. And I would urge the honourable members opposite to see this as the same cross-party approach to defending our national security, but also the regional stability as well, because the scale of the truly brutal and horrendous actions in Iran mean that we should stand together in condemnation of that action and also in the action that we need to take in concert with our allies, including on further sanctions, including on further pressure, immediate pressure on the regime as well. She asked for my assessment on the scale of what is happening. Like her, I have seen the reports that suggest there may have been 2,000 people killed, there may have been more. My fear is that the number will prove to be significantly higher because we are currently getting so little information because of the internet blackout that the regime has instigated, because they are trying to hide what they have done and the consequences of it. And that is why we are also talking to other countries about what can be done swiftly to try to restore some sort of internet access or phones communication to people across Iran as well. She asks about the Formans. I directly raised the Formans directly with the Iranian regime just before Christmas, and we continue to raise this case because it is a huge consular priority for us. And we are too also in close touch, not just with the US, but also with other allies across Europe, across the G7 as well, and looking further at what the sanctions measures are that we need to take. She asked about the snapback. She will know that obviously this had been a running issue for very many years, the non-compliance with the nuclear regime. The previous Conservative government had not taken the snapback action. We did take the snapback action. It was supported on a cross-party basis. I hope again that that will remain so because it was clear that that compliance was not taking place. And that work was done in conjunction not just with the E3, the France and Germany, but also with our US allies, many conversations with them about this as well. And then she also raised the issue around the IRGC, which again, she will know that, again, the previous government also had this issue raised with them over very many years. And I have raised particularly this issue about the legislation and the need to reform the legislation. And that is exactly why I commissioned the Jonathan Hall review, because I was concerned that legislation designed for terrorism threats was not applicable in the same way to state-backed threats, and we need to ensure that we can deal with the hybrid and state-backed threats that the country now faces. Now it needs the international community to come together on this in the face of this brutality from the Iranian regime. We need that concerted action, not just around sanctions, not just around the enforcement of the existing sanctions, but also around the overwhelming pressure. We will pursue that through the UN. We will pursue that through every avenue we can. The world is watching Iran. The world needs to be watching, and the world needs to stand together against the brutality that we have seen.
Thornbury.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think the question now is, what is Donald Trump going to do next? And there must be many people in the Foreign Office trying to second-guess what he may do. And the question is will we give support to Donald Trump if he decides to take action against the Iranian regime?
Just to briefly break into what the Foreign Affairs Select Committee chairwoman is saying, Donald Trump has posted in the last few moments an astonishing tweet on this very subject. Donald Trump, the President of the United States, calls on Iranian patriots to keep protesting, to take over your institutions, the words of the American president. He says, I have cancelled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. He promises help is on its way and signs off with the word MIGA, Make Iran Great Again.
Wow. Approach
I mean, he's serious, isn't he? And he's also, as we pointed out earlier today, told Americans who are in Iran to leave. So something is, I suspect, going to be happening soon, but we'll just keep an eye on the story and see where it goes.
Well, that is the astonishing thing. The words "help is on its way" suggests that there could be some sort of American intervention in this situation, and that would go against the words of the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, who just some moments ago in the House of Commons was saying that she did not want to do anything that would play into the hands of the regime, that would play into their narrative that this is a foreign-backed counter-revolution. She wants to make clear that the British position is that this is a grassroots movement against the Islamic Republic. This is Iranian people leading this. And I think the British government fears that if the Americans get involved perhaps with strikes or anything else, that it looks like it's American regime change rather than grassroots Iranian action.
Well, and Priti Patel did kick back actually at Yvette Cooper because she asked where is the government's resolve to stand up against Iran. She said, what is our message of hope to the Iranian people, and what is Yvette Cooper's assessment on those who have been killed or injured? She talked about the Iranian regime, and they claim to have protesters under control, and Priti Patel challenged Yvette Cooper and said, what is her assessment of that claim? So it does sound like there are, there's serious issues happening there, and we'll obviously follow all of it.
Very serious, as the Foreign Secretary was saying. I mean, there are British nationals that are currently held in Iranian prisons. There's a functioning British embassy in Tehran. That's unlike the Americans. And so there are some British interests here. I think they fear this destabilisation, although, of course, the Foreign Secretary was announcing further sanctions for regime officials and indeed for Iranian industries too.
Well, Priti Patel did ask, though, what will she use her time in the House to deal with the IRGC? That is something that people are talking about. Some people asking it to be prescribed as a terrorist organisation. And also Kim Badenoch yesterday saying that she doesn't want any IRGC to come here and seek refuge in this country.
Well, this is a clearly fast-moving and developing story. Do stay with us here on GB News as we get expert analysis on now this astonishing Truth Social post from the American president saying help is on its way from the United States.
Signed it, MIGA. Right, well, thanks for watching. Good afternoon, Britain. I shall be back tomorrow alongside you, Tom.
Absolutely. But Martin's taking you through the rest of the afternoon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. It's a bit wet out there at the moment, but also markedly milder than it was this time last week. However, we do have colder air to the northwest of the UK. That's going to make its way southeastwards as we go through the next 12 hours or so. Before that, there are two fronts lying across the country, bringing a fair amount of cloud and rain, particularly across much of England and Wales. A lot of that rain is clearing away towards the east-southeast, but it's going to take quite a while to clear away from some far southeastern parts. Elsewhere, brighter weather pushing its way in, but also a fair few showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland in particular. Like I said, colder air feeding its way in, so turning chillier towards the northwest despite the brighter skies, but staying milder towards the south and southeast. Here, as we go through into the evening, quite cloudy, some damp weather across parts of East Anglia and the far southeast, mostly dry but cloudy in the southwest. Elsewhere, across the rest of England and Wales, and also Northern Ireland and Scotland, some decent clear skies as we go through the evening and the start of the night, but also a fair few showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland. And with the cold air across us, some of those showers will be falling as sleet or snow over modest high ground. Most places are going to have a dry night with lots of clear skies, the exception being in the far south-southeast, where it's going to stay quite cloudy, but damp at times, and also more showers piling in across parts of Scotland. But with those clear skies in other areas, well, temperatures are going to drop, widely getting close to, if not below, freezing, so we can expect quite a widespread frost. There will also be some icy patches and some freezing fog patches as well first thing tomorrow morning. Those freezing fog patches could take a little while to clear as we go through the day, but actually otherwise a lot of bright weather for most places, except in the far south-southeast, staying quite cloudy, damp here, and across some western parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland we're going to see cloud and rain feeding in. Despite the bright skies, it is going to be a chilly day for most.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 3 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to make 2026 the year of yes. That's yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to making all of those dreams come true this year. Just make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Nana Akua, weekends from 3 p.m.
Relationships, you do have to set your boundaries, which means know what is acceptable behaviour for you and don't tolerate anything else. And actually, my book, Screw You, Watch This, is called Screw You, Watch This. I thought you'd like the title.
I do like that.
It's quite punchy, but